South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig live here on a happy hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank CLC, and we are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. It might be happy hour early for a lot of you folks out there because considering how things have gone for the Eagles and the Phillies this week, it might be a perfect opportunity for you to maybe drown your sorrows, shall I call it? It's been a rough week. Phillies got swept by the worst team in all of baseball this week. Phillies are the worst team in the National League. And then the Eagles, Jalen Hurts gets a stomach infection, and then Nick Sirianni says, you know what, we're just going to bench everybody. We're going to just bench the whole starting offensive line. Who cares, right? Nick Sirianni might have hit it a little early himself last night. I mean, did you see his explanations in the after game? I'm watching him like Nick Sirianni does not want to be here. He does not want to answer these questions. He wants to go home and unplug and just try again tomorrow. Oh my goodness! I mean, I don't know how you guys thought about the game last night. You can let me know as you message in throughout the show. Text board is 609-403-0973. You can message the show directly to the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank CLC. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. I'll get to you guys in just a bit. I already see messages coming in from guys like Jeff Bone and Pookie and Hodor the Horrific. I'll get to you guys in a bit, but man, let me tell you something. Last night we learned what happens when people don't try in the NFL. I don't know what was worse. The fact that Sirianni was just like, it doesn't matter. We'll just pull everybody out the field. Who cares? Or the fact that the Phillies lost to the worst team in the National League. We're going to find out throughout the show today. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City will join us coming up at 2:40 p.m. Reid Fowler, DraftKings NFL analyst, will join us coming up at 3 p.m. 3:25, we'll talk with Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad as the Phillies continue their road trip this weekend against the San Diego Padres out in San Diego. Football at 4 with Andrew DiCecco, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew is at Lincoln Financial Field last night covering the Eagles. We'll get his perspective being in the building last night. Of course, happy hour Friday with the PT at 5 p.m. And CBS Sports NFL writer Jeff Kerr joins the show coming up at 5:27. So we've got a busy show. And like I said, maybe you guys are just hitting a little early this week. It's a rainy day outside. Maybe you don't want to go anywhere. Maybe you're thinking already ahead to the weekend. Let me know. What are you consuming? What are you drinking this weekend? Are you drinking more because of the Phillies losing and the Eagles just debacle last night? Let me know. Again, 609-403-0973 is the text board. Direct message the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of CLC. And as always, we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. So I just want to run through some of my observations from the game last night. Obviously, you can't take too much from a game like that last night. But the big thing I want to highlight is the Jalen Hurts situation. And I'm not trying to be incendiary toward anybody who covers this football team. But there were some people who were trying to suggest after the game last night, online and on television, that Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, this was like a coup or something, that they were, trying to just, we weren't going to have the starting offensive line, so we faked Jalen Hurts' injury, and that's why he went to the hospital to cover up for all this. And to be honest with you, I'm frankly disgusted that people just can't accept the reality that maybe someone just actually has a sickness. Now, I'm noticing a lot of people are either ignoring or just dismissing out of hand the Schefter report. Because last time I checked, Adam Schefter on Twitter with the question with the blue chip, the blue check mark, that's verified, right? We trust Schefter, right? Well, here is the Schefter tweet from last night that a lot of people are conveniently not talking about today. So before we get to the rest of the game, we got to clear something up, because the reality is that there is no one in sports media more qualified to talk about this than me. I am the foremost expert in sports media when it comes to GI tract problems, because I spent 18 months of my life going through numerous tests, having to figure out what is wrong with me, and coming to work every day sick as a dog half the time, all right? So here's the deal. The Schefter report says Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts was sent to the Philadelphia hospital and diagnosed with a stomach infection and told to stay at home to rest for at least 2 days. He tested negative for COVID. A couple things there. Number one, when you go to the hospital, everyone's tested for COVID. Okay? That's just how it works. All right? If you're going to the hospital nowadays, and I've been there last year, from what I understand, according to people who still work in hospitals who I go to the gym with, everyone gets tested for COVID. Doesn't matter what you actually go to the hospital for. So don't read too much into that. Secondly, stomach infection. Very different than stomach virus. Very different than stomach bug. An infection can be a variety of things, okay? It can be just an irritation in the stomach walls. It could be an inflammation in the stomach, an irritation. It could be a lot of things that can create an infection. The Eagles potentially protected Jalen Hurts for something way worse last night, because one of the primary side effects of a stomach infection is dehydration. So if he would have toughed it out and pushed through, he could have actually become very dehydrated and made himself even more sick than he was. The quote that I wrote down from Nick Sirianni last night was, pain in the abdomen, in the abdominal region. Okay? That's not some simple, oh, his stomach hurts, or oh, he was throwing up. This was literally something that you got to protect the athlete from themselves. And someone who is very well versed in the mixed martial arts world, I can tell you that as the referees and the coaches had to protect the athletes from themselves at times, the Philadelphia Eagles had to protect Jalen Hurts from himself. They wanted him to go through pregame warm-up to see if it was just maybe he just was in discomfort. And Hurts wanted to play, according to Sirianni last night. But they told him, what you're describing doesn't sound right. You need to go to the hospital. So Hurts is probably on some medication to deal with the infection right now. And not knowing all the details of it, I can tell you right now, anything that involves infection and GI tract, you got to be extra careful with. You got to hydrate with water, stay away from the alcohol for a few days, stay away from the pre-workouts, stay away from the extra supplementation drinks, right? You stay away from anything that's not either grown from the ground or comes from an animal in general, all right? No muscle milk. You got to stay away from any acidic foods. You got to stay away from any acidic drinks. Cut down on the sodas. Maybe the only thing you can get away with is ginger ale, depending on your pain tolerance. Hurts is going to be down and out for a couple days, all right? He's not going to feel good for more than a couple days because of this. So that's why he didn't play last night. So to all of you people online and on television who are trying to insinuate that, this was a ruse, this is just, the Eagles pulling a fast one on us, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni were in on this, shut up. just shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay? Do me a favor. If you think last night was a ruse after Nick Sirianni's description and Adam Schefter's report, do me a favor. Let's give you a stomach infection or an intestinal infection and see how you feel. See if you can tough it out. See if you can, play through it. As I said, I am the foremost expert on GI tract issues of all sports media because of what I've been through personally. There is nothing worse than the abdominal pain that comes with any GI tract irritation, infection, etc. It is some of the most debilitating and nauseating and dizzying pain you'll ever go through. So I think the Eagles did the right thing by sending Hurts to the hospital, get him rehydrated, get him taken care of, send him home with some medications to clean it up. It'll be good to go next week for the joint practices with the Jets. And frankly, he may be at the Eagles open practices Sunday at the Link, but if he plays, I doubt it. If he does, then he's an extremely resilient individual and he's biting his teeth through the whole thing. He's got a mouthpiece in and he's gritting really hard. Because we know that Hurts is a resilient, tough young man. But like I said, you got to protect these athletes from themselves sometimes. So I had to get that out of the way and explain that. Because like I said, there are some idiots online and on television who are trying to insinuate things about Hurts and the Eagles. And they know not what they speak of. Josh Hennig filling in here for Mike Gill. Happy Hour Friday, the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Maybe you guys should have a drink for Jalen Hurts because he can't have a drink for about a couple days at least. Because last night's game, if Hurts saw any of it, that was embarrassing. First of all, Sirianni admitted that they pulled the starters on the offensive line once you saw that Hurts wasn't going to play. According to Sirianni last night in the postgame, they were talking about who they were not going to start. And once they realized that Hurts wasn't going to go, they pulled a ton of guys off the field. And you saw dudes like Fletcher Cox and Lane Johnson and a lot of guys either not even in their jerseys or just in their jersey without pads. All right? And that's a huge reason why the final score ended up being 35-0. It's not the only reason, but it's a big reason. There was not too much good to take from the game last night. Let's be realistic. Flacco did his best, all things considered. Nick Mullins, you can tell, he's washed. After that injury that he suffered last year, he's not the same quarterback that he used to be. Elijah Holyfield, he got some run, but I think it was obvious last night why he will not make the team. It was good to see Miles Sanders out on the field and get some reps for the running backs. I thought the guy on offense with the best game last night was Kenneth Gainwell. He ran the ball. He caught the ball. He showed you exactly why the Eagles drafted him and why he's a dynamic weapon. And while I thought it was funny that Ross Tucker kept calling him Kenny G, I think people are going to be getting some Gainwell jerseys by the end of this season. This young man is a phenomenal talent. And when they say he's 5'9", 200, he's probably more like 5'8", 204, honestly. And the reason I say that is because Gainwell is a young man who showed in college that he is excellent at running and receiving. In fact, they showed the highlight last night when they sent Gainwell on a go route, and he got a huge gain on the sideline against a starting college football corner as a running back. So I thought Gainwell played very, very well last night. He was one of the few bright spots for the Eagles. We got to see the debut of Devonta Smith. 4 targets, 2 catches. The one drop was definitely a concentration issue. It seemed like Smith, whether he wanted to fully admit it after the game, he was kind of still getting up to speed last night after missing some time with the MCL sprain. The 2 catches he did have, though, were big. You saw exactly why the Eagles drafted him. This young man can get separation with the best of them. Chad Johnson was drooling all over him on social media last night. You see exactly why this young man, was the Heisman Trophy winner. You saw exactly the reason why this young man is going to be a number one receiver in the NFL. He can get separation whenever he wants. Even on the 2 plays that he did not catch the ball and he was targeted, the separation he got by just manipulating the defender by either juking him or stutter stepping or hand placement or whatever the situation called for, because a couple times they tried to jam him, a couple times the guy just tried to keep up with him athletically. But Smith's got those long strides. You saw him burst, so the knee is fine. This young man is special. And I think that once he gets a little more game action under his belt, he's going to be a good one. And I think that last night, I'm not going to say it justifies trading up for and getting him, but I think it solidifies getting this young man. Okay, you saw in real time why he was drafted for the Eagles. Okay, so the 2 draft picks, Gainwell and Smith, you saw them play well last night. Defensively, when you lose 35-0, there's not much to be happy about, right? But there were a couple things I did see that I did like, okay? Alex Singleton was a freak last night. That dude, when Ross Tucker said on the broadcast that was asking the stat guy, did he have 20 tackles, him and Bradley or him and Edwards together, he wasn't exaggerating. Okay? You take Singleton, Bradley, and Edwards last night combined, they had 13 solo tackles. If you throw in Eric Wilson, combined, they had 17 solo tackles. So they almost actually did have 20 solo tackles together. I thought that last night showed why the Jonathan Gannon defense is going to be a massive upgrade for this team. Because Singleton, Wilson, Edwards, and Sean Bradley all had solid games last night. They didn't play elite, okay? They didn't play out of this world great, but they played well. And I think that considering how poor the linebacker position was last year, how they constantly got overexposed, how they constantly got manipulated, how they constantly got just ripped apart, I think that we saw last night that the linebackers are going to be better this year. Now, the only other guy that I thought really, at least from my notes, did well last night defensively, Milton Williams had a couple of plays that you saw the reason why people like him. There was one play actually where he forced the Patriots offensive line to hold him. The flag was thrown. They got a loss of yards on the play, or he would have gotten the sack. All right. There was another play that I saw that Williams literally bent the edge and forced the play to go a different direction. So even though it was a gain for the Patriots on the left side, he came after the play and forced them. And I think if those starters were out there, that play would have been contained better. But at that point, they had the 3rd and 4th string guys in there. So it's hard to expect too much of those guys. Zach McPherson, mixed results last night. He did not have a great night. His first game was better. The second game, he got picked on a bit. You could tell that he got turned around a couple times. I think overall, you want him to go through these things so he knows the things he needs to work on. I thought Michael Jacquet actually had a good game proving that he can be an in-space tackler. One of the concerns I had with Jacquet last year was he was not a great in-space tackler. He was not a guy you could depend on to deal with the run, to deal with bubble screens. I thought he showed you some improvement on that front last night. The only other guy who I thought looked good last night on defense was Patrick Johnson. He had a couple nice rushes, a couple nice pressures around the edge. Did a good job last night. Otherwise, it was a lot of slop last night. I thought that Holyfield proved he doesn't belong in the NFL. No offense to him. The attempt of a pass block, because the first time I watched the game, I had the Eagles radio broadcast on. Second time I watched the game, I had a television broadcast. Both Ross Tucker and Mike Quick tried to excuse the Holyfield block. I thought they were just being nice. I thought it was a horrible attempt. And for a young man coming from the SEC who realistically did play a lot, he should know better than to, if you are blocking, if you've ever played football in your life, you know that as a blocker, you have to attack. You don't let the blitzer come to you. You got to attack the pass block. And there were 2 instances last night that Holyfield just whiffed altogether. In fact, Gainwell did a much better job in pass protection last night. And he's a smaller man than Holyfield because Gainwell threw his body into the blocker at one point. That one guy was coming around the edge. Gainwell just threw his body into him. He was like, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to stop this guy. And that was way better than Holyfield. So, Gainwell, he showed you he's serviceable and willing pass blocker. Holyfield, he doesn't have it. It's a shame because I think Holyfield, if his career would have gone a little differently in college and the NFL, he might have been a good, serviceable NFL running back, but it seems like he's going to be relegated to the practice squad. By the way, I told you guys one of the guys I was watching for last night was Travis Fulgham. Fulgham had 1 target and no catches. He looked like he didn't want to be out there. I'm sorry. I don't know if Fulgham should make this team, folks. I really don't. I've been standing by this for a week now, and I'm going to keep on it until someone convinces me otherwise. I don't care. They don't have a lot of other options. Go find somebody cut from another team, all right? There's got to be someone who's not going to make one of these teams that you're playing this month, whether it's the Steelers. I mean, who's on the Steelers depth chart? Let me double check real quick. Who's getting cut by the Steelers? Because I feel like whoever's being cut by the Steelers right now is probably going to be a better option than Travis Fulgham because he gets targeted one time. He looks completely disinterested out there. He looks like he does not want to play football. He looks like he does not want to be out there. It's frankly embarrassing. Okay. Well, there's rumors that James Washington could be traded. All right. Maybe the Eagles call the Steelers and say, because there's reports out there, a lot of teams are calling the Eagles about Andre Dillard. More details on that at 97.3ESPN.com. I mean, heck, I'll take Cody White at this point from Michigan State. He's on their depth chart. I'm not going Rico Busi. I mean, he was an average wide receiver for Hawaii. I ain't going that far, right? Cody White, I can work with that. I can work with Cody White. I can work with James Washington. Who else is left on this depth chart who might get cut? Ray McLeod's their primary returner, so I don't see him getting cut. I'm assuming the Steelers, the wide receivers are Dante Johnson, Chase Claypool, even though he's injured right now, Juju Smith-Schuster, Ray McLeod, and then either Washington or White are going to make this team. I'll take any of the guy. Whoever gets cut by the Steelers, I'll take that guy over Travis Fulgham right now. I think Fulgham is a waste. I'm not. The NFL stands for not for long, and I think it's pretty obvious that Travis Fulgham, it's midnight in Cinderella. You got to go home. Travis Fulgham, have a nice life. That was just poor last night, his play. A lot of poor performances, but I got a couple more bad players I wrote down, but I got to mention Fulgham because he was one of the guys I was watching last night. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, being brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, and Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Visit them online at eastcoastroofing.com. We'll get to your guys' messages on the other side. We got texts in coming in 609-403-0973. Rough week for Philadelphia sports, but it's happy hour Friday. Are you drinking a little more right now? You drinking a little less right now? Let me know. Your thoughts on the Eagles last night, the Phillies being swept by the worst team in the National League. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter where you can join the conversation. Jeff, Derek, and Hodor will get to all your comments on the other side. And, of course, you can message show priority messaging through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City here on a happy hour Friday. Josh Hennig on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN.
Tomorrow on Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. It's a Lone Star State battle, and bragging rights are on the line as the Dallas Cowboys host the Houston Texans. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action as the preseason continues on. Will the Cowboys find the win column, or can the Texans make it 2 wins in a row? It's the Dallas Cowboys and the Houston Texans. If it's the NFL, it's right here.
Coverage begins at 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN. You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig back here, filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. This hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by JCPenney. Stock up on 3 days of big savings for back to school at JCPenney. Shop smart and score huge savings on doorbusters all day, today through Sunday, while they last. Weekdays are back in style at JCPenney. Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, we got a bunch of messages I want to get to here. A bunch of you guys have been chiming in. Again, you could chime in as well. Direct messaging available through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. We are also live on YouTube and Twitter literally before the show even started. Okay? Look, we started 30 minutes ago, and before the show even started, Hodor Horrific chimes in and says, preseason doesn't matter, but boy, was that ugly last night. Yeah, man, it was. Look, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I stuck through the whole game because it's who I am. You know, if it wasn't my job to watch sports, I might have changed the channel and come back to it. But because it was my job and it's part of who I am to see things through, I stuck through the game and I rewatched it last night. So I don't know what that says about me, but over on the text board at 609-403-0973. Nick from Brain T says, do the Eagles sell logoed barf bags? They should. They might have made some money last night. Another message chimes in says, maybe Hurts ate some bad shrimp, a lot of recalled shrimp going on, or it could be a million other things. Listen, as I said earlier, you know, stomach infection is a complicated thing because there are a million reasons. It's not an irritation specifically. An infection usually of the stomach wall or the bottom of the esophagus or maybe the part of the stomach where it meets the small intestine, you know, maybe too much of there's a variety of reasons. I don't want to get into too many details. I don't want to gross anybody out, but there's a lot of things that happen with the GI tract process that could have caused Jalen Hurts' infection last night. Jeff Bonapookie says, man, the refs weren't calling much of anything last night. You are right. There were a bunch of holding calls on the Eagles receivers that were not called last night, specifically on Devonta Smith. There was one. There was one on Richard Rodgers. There was another one on Jack Stoll. Who else? Who else do they have a hold on? There was a hold on JJ Whiteside last night, too. That was a little weird. I don't know why. I mean, why are you holding JJ? Like, you really got to grab J-Jaw? That was a little weird. Also, Quez Watkins got grabbed as well, according to my notes. So, yeah, the refs really weren't that great last night. But it is the preseason. Jeff says, man, I don't know what the hell that was last night. And by the way, Jeff is the first to get started on the alcohol conversation. He says, I got Heineken when I get off. There you go. Now, is that regular Heineken or Heineken Light? You know, I feel like the Heineken drinkers usually not the Heineken Light drinkers, but you let me know, Jeff. That's Jeff Bonapookie over on the YouTube stream. Says he's having a Heineken when he gets off of work today. Back on the text board, 609-403-0973. Darren from Millville needs to vent. He says, the Phillies suck. The Eagles suck. My girlfriend ticked me off, so she stinks too. Not sure what I'm drinking, but it's going to be strong. Sorry, had the vent. That's Darren from Millville. Well, Darren, those are three things I can help you with. But all I can suggest is drink responsibly, my friend. As the disclaimer says all the commercials. Yeah, man, the Phillies getting swept by the worst team in the National League is pretty poor. Okay? And the Eagles last night, I mean, that just happens. It's a preseason game. So, you know, it is what it is. So, concerning your girlfriend, best of luck with that. You know, I don't get involved in things like that too much unless I personally know the person. So, but just put it this way. If your girlfriend ticked you off, maybe you need to have a conversation with her about why that bothered you. Just saying. because if she's a good girlfriend, you don't want to lose her. If it's something very simple, don't lose a relationship over that. That's my recommendation. Derek chimes in over on YouTube, says, apparently I quit drinking at the wrong time. That's good. That's good. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate you joining the conversation. Yeah, maybe you did. I don't know. Best of luck to you with that. Over on the text board at 609-403-0970, Tom in the Villas has bullet points for me over here. He says, 1, all you Flacco guys, what do you think now? So Tom for the Villas, I'm going to go point by point here, if that's okay with you. I'm not going to read its entirety. I'm going to go point by point. So number 1, all you Flacco guys. Yeah, man, I don't know who the Flacco guys are. I feel like they've become less and less since he got signed. I feel like there was the peak Flacco people were like around like March, April, and May. And since then, they've kind of like been dying out more and more. If there are any quote unquote Flacco should be the Eagles starter, unquote, people left, I think last night wasn't really an indictment on Flacco, though. It was kind of an indictment on the fact that they had no offensive line in front of him. Sayamala was the only starter I saw out there. Herrig was the guy who snapped the ball over Flacco's head. Mailata didn't really play last night. Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Kelsey, they pretty much were benched. You got guys like Brett Toth out there. Drac Driscoll doing his best out there. By the way, one of the guys I wrote down is horrible. Matt Pryor is an abomination at this point. I think he's gotten worse every year in the NFL. All right. He allowed 2 sacks last night. Let's see here. Pryor. I mean, the one, he just allowed Mullins to get sacked on the one play. He literally just was like, oh, well, I can't get to the guy, so I'm not going to try. The other time he allowed a sack, he barely moved his feet. He stopped the guy initially, and he almost started celebrating, like, hey, I stopped the guy. And then the guy ran around and got him sacked. So Pryor's an abomination. Number 2, Tom from the Villa says, new defense coordinator, same Schwartz defense, converted 3rd and longs, wide open receivers, poor tackling, no blitz. That I got to disagree with you because Singleton, Bradley, Wilson, and who was the other one? Edwards. They both were tackling. They were both all tackling well. I thought the linebackers played well. You had poor tackling and poor effort from some of the guys on the defensive line and in the secondary. Okay. And there was a blitz, actually. There were multiple times I saw a blitz package thrown out there where they were bringing 5 and 6 guys, but it didn't matter because the Patriots were either holding people or the quarterbacks like Jones were scrambling out of the pocket. Cam Newton got the ball out of his hands quickly a couple times. Brian Hoyer had a couple quick throws. So there was a blitz There was a blitz a few times actually last night. But converting the 3rd and longs and the wide open receivers, those were just complete busts in coverage. Secondary played very poor last night. I thought the linebackers did good with the tackling. So I can't, you can't take a preseason game and say it's the same defense. Okay. This is a different defense. It looks different. It plays different. So I don't think that's a fair on your part, Tom. Real quick, couple other things. He says, number 3, all these young coaches, coordinators look lost. I think Sirianni was frustrated last night. I think Sirianni and Gannon were both like, I can't believe we're playing this game with 3rd and 4th string guys. And then the 4th thing from Tom the Villas, he says, is it wrong that Ross Tucker annoys me to no end? That's from Tom the Villas. I don't think it's wrong. It's your opinion. You don't have to like the guy. I personally like Ross Tucker as a dude. I think he gets a little gimmicky on the broadcast sometimes. Maybe you don't like the Ross Tucker gimmick or the Ross Tucker shtick. But I think overall he does a good job at analysis. And I think he does a good job at his podcast. Maybe it's just when he's playing that role as shtick color commentator. Maybe that's what annoys you the most, Tom. Because I think if Ross Tucker was just doing pure football talk, I think you'd be fine with it. All right, we'll get more of your messages coming up throughout the show. What are you drinking this weekend? Are the Phillies and Eagles driving you the drink? Let me know. Happy Hour Friday on the Sports Bash with 97.3 ESPN, 609-403-0973. Priority messaging through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Download for free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter. Join the show next. We'll talk more about all these topics. Mike McGarry, the president of Atlantic City, joins us here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
On someone else excludes Corvette with GM financing, excludes price sales. See dealer for details.
Have you seen what some dealers are now charging for new cars and used vehicles? It's outrageous. But at Bennett Chevrolet, you still pay what GM supplier employees pay for brand new Chevys. Plus, Bennett gives you all the rebates. That's not either or, you get both. And that can save you up to 25% off MSRP. And Bennett has 0% financing available to save you even more. Got a trade? Bennett's paying top dollar. And we mean top dollar. A minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. That's a minimum $7,000 for any old clunker you can tow to our lot. And if it's in good shape, we'll pay more. And we'll buy your vehicle even if you don't buy one of ours. And Bennett makes it so easy. No sales pressure, no negotiating, just pure joy. Because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So you can see why nobody beats Bennett Chevrolet. Nobody. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, 97.3 ESPN. Mobile app, we are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. Joining us right now to get more into, well, it's been a rough week. And the Phillies made the week worse. You get swept by the worst team in the National League. What the heck is going on? Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City, joins us right now here on the Sports Bash. on 97.3 ESPN on a happy hour Friday edition of the show. Mike, how are you doing today?
It's not very happy for the Philadelphia Phillies this week. I, however, am doing fine, basically.
So you're doing better than the Phillies. That's the good news, right?
It's not hard. That's a low bar, to be doing worse than the Philadelphia Phillies right now.
That is true. Even though the Eagles tried their best last night. So, Mike, I got to ask you though. I mean, listen, it was one thing to lose 2 out of 3 of the Dodgers and 2 out of 3 of the Reds, but to get swept by the Diamondbacks, have trouble scoring in every single game. Mike, what the heck is going on here?
Well, they're just not hitting, as I wrote today in my must-win column. When they had that win streak, they hit 18 home runs. They won 8 in a row, and they're just not hitting the ball right now. And it's up and down the lineup. It's Brad Miller at first base in place of Hoskins. It's Alec Boehm at third base with a huge disappointing season. It's JT Realmuto with his lowest slugging percentage since 2016. It's center field, which has been a dead spot all season. It's Gene Segura, who's batting about 260 since the All-Star break and is returning to kind of the back of his baseball card. It's Stevie Gregorius, who's not having a great season. It's Andrew McCutchen, who's been inconsistent. This is a team with flaws, but it was supposed to be able to hit those flaws. They did so for 8 games. And now when you look back at that 8-game winning streak, and you see that 4 of those wins came against the Washington Nationals and 3 of those wins came against the New York Mets, you say to yourself, hey, maybe that winning streak says more about the Phillies' opposition than it says about the Phillies themselves.
What I'm also thinking about is the fact that, the Diamondbacks did just come off a series with the Padres where they scored 24 runs in 4 games. So I kind of have to wonder, did they just catch Arizona at the absolutely wrong time? Like, did Arizona just suddenly figure out how to play baseball and the Phillies just happened to be the victims of it?
Yeah, Arizona has won something like 38, 39, 40 games, but they have been playing better than that recently. They took 3 or 4 from the Padres the weekend before, hosting the Phillies. So you're catching Arizona when they're swinging the bats well, but that doesn't excuse you for scoring 0 runs against them. It'd be one thing if they lost games, 8-7 or 8-6 or something like that. Arizona has the worst pitching staff in the National League. You should be able to muster more than, what do they have? 11, 12 hits the entire 3-game series. So yeah, you're catching Arizona on an upswing, which is great, but you can't be losing games 6-1 or getting 3 hits in a game. If you're going to lose to them, you should be losing like 5-4, 6-4, 7-5, something like that. So it does not excuse the offense whatsoever.
Mike McGarry joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN as the Phillies continue their road trip on the West Coast, taking on the Padres this weekend. They have now lost 4 straight, including a sweep to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Mike, it seems like Girardi keeps changing the lineup. He keeps trying to find the magic elixir, but nothing's working. They scored only 2 runs each game in the Diamondback series, and overall they've struggled scoring aside from the 1 win versus the Reds on Saturday. So is the Phillies lineup just, are they outmatched? Do they really need Rhys Hoskins that much? What is the problem here?
You look at it now and you might want to say, okay, it's talent, right? I think it's Alec Boehm not being the player that everybody thought he was at third base. Hoskins' injury has forced them to play Brad Miller. Boehm not playing well has forced them to play Ronald Torreyes. Those guys are bench players. They are not meant to be everyday players, so they're kind of being overexposed. They're the type of players, if they get 300 at-bats a year, you love them. You love to have them on the team. If they get 500 at-bats a year, it's a problem. And right now they're on that 500 at-bat type of playing time. So you've got an issue there. You've got, JT Realmuto. Let's face it, everybody signed JT. JT Realmuto has not had a good season, basically. If you look at his numbers, they're his worst offensive numbers in 4 or 5 years. Center field, as I mentioned before, nothing from Jankowski, nothing from Abdul Herrera, nothing from, any of the other guys that have filled in there. So, sometimes you say, why aren't they hitting? What's wrong? Maybe what's wrong is they're just not that good.
Phillies have now lost 7 of their last 9, Mike. And in those games, since they had the 8-game winning streak, They've lost the Dodgers, the Reds, and the Diamondbacks. Are averaging 2.3 runs per game in this stretch, including numerous games where they've only scored 2 runs, including a 2-1 win over the Dodgers. Going into this weekend, you write about in your must-win column that their season pretty much hinges on this weekend. You know, if they're just not that good, what has to change? Are they, Mike, are they the team that we've seen the last several games, or are they the team that had the 8-game winning streak, or are they realistically somewhere in between?
They're probably somewhere in between. They're probably not as bad as they've shown at the plate the last couple of games, and they're definitely not as good as they were during the 8-game winning streak. To me, they're a fundamentally flawed roster that has to be fixed in the offseason. As far as, this weekend, I wrote my column, which I had to write before yesterday's game for deadline reasons, that they had to go 3-1 in this 4-game stretch. Well, they lost the first game of that 4-game stretch yesterday. So now they've got 3 games in San Diego. I know San Diego is struggling. They've lost something like 8 of 9 or 9 of 10. But they're looking at the Phillies saying, hey, the Phillies are coming to town. Maybe we can get healthy here. Maybe we can turn our season around. So the Phillies have to stop the bleeding right now. Atlanta's going in to play Baltimore. Baltimore, I believe, has lost 15 games in a row. They're the worst team in baseball. Not only have they lost 15 in a row, they've lost them all by multiple runs. Not one of those defeats was by 1 run. So you can't be playing any worse than Baltimore is playing right now. The Braves are playing them this weekend. The Phillies, you've got to stop the bleeding. You could be 7 games back, 6 games back on Monday. If that's the case, like I wrote today, summer might be over. So the Phillies' number one goal is stop the bleeding. And it's a little daunting, the fact that you're turning to Matt Moore, last start notwithstanding, to stop that bleeding tonight.
Mike, I had somebody text in yesterday that they're done with Alec Bohm. It seems like the situation with Bohm is all potential and all hope and not actual performance on the field. The theory was a couple months ago is, hey, maybe you trade Hoskins in the offseason and you move Bohm to first base. Mike, I'm starting to wonder if you actually – is the Bohm experiment going to work out? Should they keep with him? Did they mismanage his development? Did they maybe ask him to come up too soon? What do you do with the Alec Bohm situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know what the answer is at this point in the season. He showed a lot of potential last year. He hit the ball well, but when you watch him hit this season, the ball just does not jump off his bat. When you watch him in person, he does not hit with power, and he is a big guy. So you've got a real question there as to what position he can play. Can't play third base. He can't play first base. I know everybody says, well, the National League might have the DH in next season, but that's not the way teams utilize the DH today. They don't have one guy designated to be the DH. They like to move it around. And you look at the Phillies, they got a right fielder that's going to need the DH as he gets older with his back issues. They've got a catcher who they've invested a lot of money in who's going to have to DH, right? So they've got position players that they can sort of filter through that DH position right there. So you're not going to have an exclusive DH, and that's not the way teams really use the DH today. The days where you've had David Ortiz and Edgar Martinez as sole DHs for teams are pretty much over. So Bohm is an interesting question. What you don't want to do is give up on him and see him go somewhere else at 25, 26 and find himself and have a great career. But they might have to take the Spencer Howard route with him, saying he is not what we thought he was, or at least he is not here, and we'll trade him and get a pretty good player back in return.
Is it also maybe something you got to package him with somebody else to get that other player in return? Theoretically, how Philly fans are. They want the biggest name humanly possible. That might not be possible if you're just going to trade Alec Bohm.
Well, I agree that in the offseason, the Phillies roster is flawed, right? They're going to need a left fielder. They're going to need a center fielder. They've got to settle the situation at third base. They've got to settle the situation at shortstop. They've got to sort of solidify the bullpen. So this is a flawed team that needs its roster reshaped in the offseason. And Bohm is one of those players that you could package in a deal to get some other players back and sort of change the roster of the team. But obviously he would have to be part of a package now because of the season that he's had. But again, it's a conflicting question. Is it the Alec Bohm? Is he the guy we saw last year? who looked like, he was going to play third base for the next 5 or 6 years and hit 25 to 30 home runs a year? Or is it the Alec Bohm we see this year who can't hit? And when a ground ball is hit to third base, you hold your breath to see if he fields it. And when he fields it, you're still not breathing because you're holding your breath to see if he can actually throw it on target to first base. So, he is one of the biggest questions that this team will have to address in the offseason.
Mike McGarry's must-win column, Phillies playoff hopes could hinge on this weekend. Check it out over at thepressofatlanticcity.com. Follow Mike McGarry on Twitter at ACPressMcGarry. And as all guests, he joined us here on the Sports Bash. Mike, hope you have a good weekend, and I hope the Phillies at least win one game this weekend so we don't have to drown our misery the entire weekend.
Hell, they better, or summer could be coming to an early end for your Philadelphia Phillies. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Mike McGarry, always good to talk with him. We'll be back with Mike Gill on Monday's show here on 97.3 ESPN. We got more messages to get to in the next hour. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter, where you can join the conversation here on 97.3 ESPN. I am Josh Hennig, hanging out with you. Sports Bash being brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Visit them online at mattblattnissan.com. Still to come on the show, Reid Fowler, DraftKings NFL analyst, joins us coming up on the other side, plus Bob Wankel from Crossing and Broad. We'll dig deeper into the Phillies with him at 3:25, and we'll get back to the Eagles. Also, Andrew DiCecco was at the game, at the link last night, covering the game for the InsideTheBirds.com. He'll join us to get more deeper into the Eagles on Football at 4 right here on the Sports Bash. Happy Hour Friday. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, everybody, it's Mike Gill again from my guys over at PropSwap.com and the PropSwap app. Well, prop swappers all over continue to make money. And Luke Pergandy, right now, let's find out. How's the market been for Bryce Harper MVP and Zach Wheeler for Cy Young?
Yeah, Tatis Jr. coming back on Sunday and smacking 4 RBIs and 2 home runs is not helping Bryce's chances. So Tatis Jr., it is his award to lose. However, like we discussed, Bryce's odds still 4-1. 2 weeks ago, 60-1. So if you've got a Bryce Harper ticket at 60-1 or 50-1 or 40-1, this may be the time for you to list it for sale. We've got buyers for you. And if Tatis keeps hitting the way he is, Bryce will not win this award.
All right, we know those are the 2 big local tickets going on, but what else is popping up right now on PropSwap?
Yeah, we've got a Raiders to win 1 game ticket. So the Raiders win total is 3.5 on a 17-game season this year. Pretty paltry number at 3.5. Some guy in Ocean grabbed the Raiders to win 1 game at 500-1 odds. So really interesting ticket. He's got it up for sale right now. Are we, is he saying, or does PropSwap say that like the Raiders are going to win 1 game? Probably not, but he's trying to PropSwap this thing. So if the Raiders start out 0-4, 0-5, they got a pretty tough schedule of Philly going to Vegas, Bears going to Vegas, I believe Tampa goes to Vegas, a difficult schedule. That 500-1 ticket improves in value a ton.
It's PropSwap.com and the PropSwap app. Download it today. Download it now and start prop swapping. Luke, thank you as always.
Thank you, Mike.
PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
Touchdown!
Sixers,
It's good!
and Flyers.
Oh, big save by Carter Hart.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live, as always, on YouTube and Twitter. Keep the messages coming in. Of course, you need the direct message the show through 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Text board is there as always, 609-403-0973. And don't forget, we are live on YouTube and Twitter. We got messages coming in there as well. We'll get to your messages throughout the hour. Still to come. We'll get back to the Phillies a little bit later with Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad. He'll join us coming up a little bit later in the hour, about 3:25. He'll join us here on 97.3 ESPN. But joining us right now to talk more about the NFL, friend of the show from DraftKings, Reid Fowler, is joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Reid, really busy time of year for him. He is over at the Northern Trust at the DraftKings house at Liberty National in Jersey City. So Reid is taking a little bit of time away from what he's doing up there. They're doing to talk some football, away from his golf, which is one of his passions. Reid, how you doing today, my friend?
Good, Josh. Yeah, we're up here in Jersey City, watching the Northern Trust. Just got a chance to talk to Bryson. He's doing well, shot 6 under, a little bit better than his even par round yesterday. So he's in good spirits. He's tired, but hey, he's right back in it. I think he's T9 or he's top 10. I think just around there. So all things are good right now.
Well, at least somebody's playing well, because listen, in Philadelphia, everything is sour right now. So we're going to try to put at least a little bit of a positive spin on things. You know, Reid, I've always been told, you can't read too much into the preseason. A wise man once told me, watch the players, not the final score. So, what is your position on the Eagles coming into this season? A lot of change, a lot the same as well with that football team.
Yeah, I think what you have to take away from preseason is, like you just mentioned, the individual players. How are they playing? Is their stock going up or down? What do you like about the certain defensive scheme? What do you like about the new head coach? Kind of glean just more of a general 30,000-foot view as opposed to specifics when it comes to breaking down the game. And I think when you take a look at how they played last night and what you see for the Philadelphia Eagles, I think there are some good takeaways. Even though it wasn't a great game for the Eagles faithful out there, I think TJ Edwards played fantastic. He and Alex, I think, had like 400, and I think Ross Tucker was mentioning it. They must have had like close to 50 tackles together combined. Guys were all over the field, and we kind of saw that last year from Singleton, that he stepped up into that middle linebacker role, and he was fantastic. So in his limited time, you saw him really perform. I also think Devonta Smith, right? Only 2 catches, but really crisp route runner. You see how good he is, despite his size, that he can get open, and it was pure, right? And now the other part of that, though, Josh, is who's going to be throwing in the ball. And even though Jalen Hurts wasn't playing due to an illness, I think it's safe to say that, and in the locker room, your insight is probably a little bit better than mine, closer to the Eagles' locker room, is that Jalen Hurts is their franchise quarterback. And I don't see how you can roll out Nick Mullins or Joe Flacco week 1 and not Jalen Hurts.
Well, first of all, I don't even know if Nick Mullins even makes the roster at this point. He looks like ever since he had that shoulder injury, he just can't throw the football anymore. He looks like he's a little gun shy. But you're right, though. Your perception is right. Your Hurts has taken the first team snaps all training camp. No one else getting first team snaps. In fact, Flacco mentioned last night that he barely gets any work with the first team. So them not having the starters out there yesterday actually helped him a little bit. So to me, we all know that Hurts is going to be the guy. The question, though, is he going to be good enough? Because people are looking at him as a trial period this year. Jalen Hurts doesn't play well enough this year, Reid. The expectation is the Eagles are going to take all those draft assets and try to trade up to get a quarterback. So, in your mind, can Jalen Hurts be good enough to be a franchise quarterback?
Yeah, I think with what you see and what Philly needs to do is you guys need to be competitive, right? The division itself is one that is right for the taking now. It's you could easily say that this is a rebuild year, but what we saw from Jalen Hurts is he put seats in the stands, right? Either virtual, like if you're watching on TV, or the literal seats in the stands, the backsides in the stands. So even from a business standpoint, if he's not playing well, he's going to be better than Joe Flacco. I think it's safe to say that he gives you the best opportunity to win. Now, like even early off in the preseason, and even after last season, really early on, there was a sentiment that Jalen Hurts was not the guy. Not with Sirianni in, it's the new camp, right? It's not their quarterback. So would I be surprised if the new regime wanted their own quarterback? Because we know head coaches in the NFL are tied to their quarterback, especially if you draft a quarterback. Yeah, that might be something that we see down the road. But from everything that I'm seeing and that I'm reading, that when Jalen Hurts, when they talk about Jalen Hurts, teammates talk about him, he's that guy. His work ethic, first in, last out. He's testing the receivers in the locker room, going to and from practice. That's what you want from your quarterback, especially a guy like Jalen Hurts who has talent and sometimes, potentially has too much talent where he thinks he can do it himself. I think he's the best option you have right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if the new regime wants to go a different route next year.
Reid Fowler joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, at Reid T. Fowler on Twitter, DraftKings, NFL, and PGA analyst joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Now, Reid, with all that being said, a lot of people believe the NFC East is anyone's game, and if you watch Hard Knocks, the Cowboys are probably the most boring team in the division at this point, the way Hard Knocks is portraying them. And then we know with Washington, they got the defense, but questions are about the quarterback, right? And then the Giants, nobody knows. Daniel Jones, the offensive line, nobody knows. Of course, the Eagles have their own questions. So how do you gauge the NFC East looking at it right now?
Yeah, I think for myself, the front runner is the Washington football team. Right now on the DK Sportsbook to win the division, they're plus 230. Dallas is the favorite at plus 130, and you have Philly there at plus 550. You got some pretty long odds on Philly to win the division if it's wide open. Yeah, that's a pretty good number to take on a team that does have the ability. They do have the pieces. Like Jalen Reagor, we know how athletic he is. Dallas Goedert, or if it's Zach Ertz, we don't know what Zach Ertz, what the future holds for him in Philadelphia, but we know what Dallas Goedert can do. And we know what Miles Sanders can do. So you take a look at that. You take a look at some of these other players on the defensive side that are playing well. Plus 550, not too bad from a division standpoint. But when you look at Washington now with Ryan Fitzpatrick, with Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin is there, Curtis Samuel was brought in the offseason. along to go with this defense, it kind of harkens a little bit, Josh. And these two teams are not the same, but I do feel like we see the Rams a little bit, the Los Angeles Rams, with an offense that can score with a top 5 defense. And that's what we're seeing in Washington right now. That defense is strong, and that offense got better in the offseason.
You know, it's funny about the Cowboys also because the last 10 times they've been a favorite to win the division, they've only won the division one of those 10 times. So, you know, yeah, they may be a favorite in a lot of places to win the division, but let's be realistic. You know, they don't win it that often. So, you know, it might be smart if you're wanting to throw a wager, you throw the wager on one of the other 3 teams over on DraftKings. Reid, you got me over there?
Oh, sorry. You got me, Josh?
Yeah, you got me now?
Yeah, gotcha.
So what was the last thing you heard me say?
Yeah. So I was talking about Dallas and Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
And, you know, we saw how different that team was, right, when Dak went down. Now, I would even argue to say that with Dak in the game and when he was playing and when he was healthy, you know, the defense was still allowing a ton of points. So you're right. Like if they get into these shootouts and let's say CeeDee Lamb or one of these guys gets nicked up for a game, you could easily see them sit down. You could easily see, you know, a Mike McCarthy team maybe not necessarily get up to snuff when it comes to winning this division like they should. Clearly, the most talented team, right, especially on offense, is Dallas. Can Micah Parsons, from a rookie standpoint, and yes, he's been looking good at camp. He's been someone that a lot of people are talking about, that his camp footage is great, but he's still a rookie, right? He's still a rookie, and can this defense now, with Keanu, with some additions in the offseason, support this offense that if the offense doesn't show up or if someone on that team gets hurt, can they rely on their defense? Right now, you're right. I think a lot of it is sentiment. And what do you know, Josh? Like, Dallas is such a public team. It's such a publicly bet team that, you know, some of these lines, some of these numbers are a little inflated. So if that's the case, you know, like I mentioned, Washington football team sitting right there at plus 230. I think that's a really good number to win the division.
A couple more here for DraftKings NFL analyst Reid Fowler joining us here on a happy hour Friday on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you give him a follow on Twitter at Reid T. Fowler. Reid, one of my favorite things, I'm looking on the DraftKings Sportsbook futures right now. The NFC West is wide open, as we know, and these odds are not exactly crazy. 49ers plus 180, Rams plus 190, Seahawks plus 275, and those Arizona Cardinals did a lot of improvements offseason. They're plus 650 to win the division. I mean, heck, if you're somebody, why don't you just throw a little bit on each one of those 4 teams?
Yeah, absolutely. If you take a look at their win totals too, Josh, you look at everyone, like all those teams aside from the Arizona Cardinals are at 10 and a half, right? That's their regular season win line. And you would think, right, like any one of these teams could really do it, right? Like you don't feel like there is an overarching, and yes, if I had to pick one of these teams, I think the Rams is that for me, like I mentioned earlier. I'm talking about the Washington football team, just because of what they did last year, Josh. When they have an offense, top 15 in pass, top 10, I believe, in rush. And yes, Cam Akers went down, but, you know, they have Henderson that's there. They have some guys that could support, you know, maybe 75%, 80% of the upside of what Cam Akers would provide, maybe a little bit less. But this offense was 22nd in points scored per game, right? And a lot of that had to do with Jared Goff and his struggles. Let's call it struggles last year, right? And now you bring in Stafford and what he can do to an offense, what we've seen in Detroit, and that top 5 defense, right? Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. The only thing that worries me a little bit about the Rams is they don't have any depth. So to your point, Seattle sitting there at plus 275 is still strong, bringing most of that team back on the offensive side, and their defense getting a little bit better. The 49ers, talk about a team that was just completely destroyed by COVID, completely destroyed by injuries last year, and they were still able to win a respectable amount of games. Like if we could give the coaching award to someone, I think I might have mentioned this on your show, Josh, last year. If we could give the coaching award to anybody from a losing team or anybody in general, Shanahan should have gotten that award because of what he did with the team that he had. So you're right. Like you talk about this division, it's embarrassment of riches you might as well. The Cardinals, going to be a little bit of a struggle. That defense is still young. I know J.J. Watt has come on, but they have a lot of rookies on that defense, a lot of second-year guys. And then we know that offense is strong. It's just, can they keep up with these other three teams that are in this division? But, yeah, this is probably the hardest one this year.
Reid, before I let you go, I know you're up there at the Northern Trust at the DraftKings house at Liberty National in Jersey City. And as I'm looking right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, your favorite as of this moment, as I'm looking at it, is Jon Rahm. But Tony Finau right now is -7 this round, and Finau is +600 to win. If you're giving people a little bit of advice out there on the DraftKings Sportsbook, which way are you pointing them in the direction of?
Yeah, Tony Finau, again, if you're a fan of mine or if you've listened to any one of my shows or interviews, you know how much I love Tony Finau. So I don't want to give the listeners a biased opinion, but he played great. He played great today. Got a chance to catch up with him a little bit, and he was, he looked in good spirits, looked in high spirits, and he's just a relaxed guy. Especially in this type of setting, you want that. But when Jon Rahm is up there, Josh, JT, Justin Thomas, when they're leading or they're close to this top of the leaderboard, so much win equity is soaked up with those two guys. I wouldn't go past someone like Finau. I would not go past someone like maybe even a guy like DiCecco. But even then, right, you start talking about a guy like Jon Rahm who can run away with this thing because he's playing so well. Round one, he had no bogeys, 8 birdies. Right, that's how well he's playing on a course that is scoreable. It's a little bit more moisture. It's raining a little bit here, and the sun is hot. So these guys, if they're ball striking it well, they can score here. We saw that with Bryson. Bryson made a ton of birdies round one, a ton of birdies round two, just a lot of those bogeys. So I'd probably stay Tony Finau at the longest odds at +600, which sounds weird for a golf tournament, but JT and Rahm are just too good to try and bet again.
Again, follow him on Twitter at Reid T. Fowler. Covers the NFL and the PGA for DraftKings. He's up there at the Northern Trust, which if you actually want to watch it, it's over there on the Golf Channel right now. You guys can check out that Jersey City course, Liberty National, and he'll be up at the DraftKings house this weekend. Reid, appreciate you making some time out of your day. I know you've been crazy busy. Always good to catch up with you, my friend.
All right, Josh, take care.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Always good to hear from Reid Fowler. Always great insights from him on the NFL. This hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Visit them online at mattblattnissan.com. Interesting things there from Reid. I want to hit on a really quick couple notes I made, what he said. Reid was talking about the fact that, the Eagles this year, they could be really good. He likes what he's seen from Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith and TJ Edwards and Alex Singleton. But he said, he doesn't know if they can win the division, though. And I think he's right. I said this yesterday on the show. We were talking about the over-under on the Eagles is 6.5, right? And I'm going to double-check if it's changed at all since we looked at it yesterday. I mean, I'm assuming it hasn't. But, when you look at the Eagles, I don't think that they're a team that, is going to win the division, right? I just don't see them as a team that wins the division. But I think that the 6.5, I'm double-checking right now over here, on the latest odds. Yeah, it's still 6.5. Okay. I don't think they're a team that is a bad football team. I don't think they're going to be 4-11 and whatever again, because one, there's 17 games on the schedule, obviously, but number two, because of the fact that, I just don't think you can, the odds of you having that many injuries and that many problems and that poor of quarterback play, I don't think happens. So, Reid makes a very interesting point that, you see good things from this Eagles team. You see good things from them as they come together. So, to me, when I look at the Eagles, I see a team that, they do get over that 6.5. Do they win the division? I don't know about that. You know what I mean? The problem when it comes to, if you're someone who wants to bet futures, right? And I'm never going to tell somebody that your bet is really bad unless it is really bad. Like, if you're someone who says the Lions are going to win the division at +280, I'm going to question your sanity, right? But in a general principle, when you got a division like the NFC East, and every team has value on the odds, right? Cowboys plus 130, Washington plus 230, Giants plus 450, Eagles plus 550. If you're someone who wants to go involved in those futures odds, I'm not going to tell you that any of those picks are bad picks because I think that every team in this division is flawed. I feel like I can make an argument for or against any team in the NFC East. So I think Reid brings up a great point. A lot of national money, okay, a lot of money, across the country comes in on the Cowboys. And that's part of the reason why that number is plus 130. If you took the Cowboys roster and put it in a Giants, Eagles, or Washington uniform, are they plus 130? I don't think so. And if you take, for example, the Washington football roster, or you take the Giants or the Eagles roster, I don't know if they're plus 130 either in a Cowboys uniform. Maybe they're plus 150, but I don't think the Cowboys are that much better than the rest of the division. So it's definitely worth something to keep an eye on. I am fascinated by this football season. I'm so excited. And of course, you can hear all the Eagles football action right here on 97.3 ESPN. We are your home for Eagles football in South Jersey. And of course, you can hear the Cowboys next preseason game tomorrow night versus the Texans right here on 97.3 ESPN as well. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to more football coming up a little bit later in the show. Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco was at the game last night on Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports at 5:25 tonight. We'll get back to the Phillies coming up next. Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad. We're going to ask him. The Phillies have averaged 2.3 runs per game since they stopped winning games. Remember they had the 8-game winning streak? They had the first place in the division. Ever since then, they could barely win a game. They could barely score. What the heck is going on with these miserable Phillies? Well, that's Bob Wankel coming up next here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter. Just follow the show at 97.3 ESPN.
We never stop talking Eagles and NFL. It's Football at 4. Every day at 4 p.m. on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
New Jersey car owners, stop what you're doing and come see AJ, the trade-in man, at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Oh, yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Cancel that service appointment. Let your tires go bald. Don't put another penny in that old car. The value of your current vehicle has skyrocketed, so cash in your vehicle now. Used car values are at an all-time high. Your car may be worth more than you think. New 2021 Nissan Frontier 4x4 truck. 0 due at signing. Lease $349 per month. Stuck in a loan or lease? We can get you released. We'll buy your car for cash, even if you don't buy a car from us. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. Get $3,000 back on every 2021 Nissan Murano and pay 0 interest for 60 months in Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, or online at mattblattnissan.com. Negative equity will be refinanced in the new vehicle. Rate qualifications exist. Not all will qualify. 0% APR based on 1667 per thousand borrowed. Offers can't be combined. 36 month, 10,000 miles per year lease. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattnissan.com for complete details. Offer ends 9/6/21. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are always live on YouTube and Twitter. We're joining us right now. He's actually the first person joining the stream today, so it's nice to be able to actually talk to a face, even though it's virtually today here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. From Crossing Broad, he is Bob Wankel, joins the show every Monday and Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. Bob, how are you doing today?
I'm all right, man. What's up? How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, I've been talking to the phone half the day today, so it's like it's nice to finally. Usually, everyone jumps on the video stream, and it's like everyone's like, "Oh, I need to get on the phone," and you're just like, once you're used to the video stream, you're like, I kind of like seeing a human being to talk to. You know what I mean?
I do too, so that when we do these hits, I can kind of see your eyes, like they gloss over a little bit, so I know that it's time to wrap up my answer. You know.
That's good. Well, I think a lot of Philly fans, their eyes are glossed over after this team. They just can't win a game right now, Bob. I mean, it just, like I said, they're averaging, I did the numbers, 2.3 runs per game since that 8-game winning streak. And let's be realistic, one of those wins, that was 2 runs. They won 2-1 against the Dodgers. So what the heck is going wrong with this offense?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of things happening, and I kind of break it up into 3 different prongs. You know, it's, on the one hand, you have a situation where there's a number of guys slumping simultaneously. Like over the last 7 games or so, you know, JT Realmuto has really struggled. Andrew McCutchen has struggled since he's come off the injured list. Bryce Harper had a tough week out in Arizona. But then on top of that, I think that what you're seeing are certain guys trying to overcompensate for the struggles of their teammates. You know, what you're seeing is guys trying to do too much rather than just taking what's given to them, staying back on the ball, putting it in play. See a lot of swings for the fences, and, you know, that can kind of snowball things a little bit. And then the other aspect of it is certain players are just being overexposed right now. You know, Brad Miller's a really nice complimentary piece. And if you start him twice a week, you know, he can be a really productive player for you. But he's not the kind of guy that you want to run out there for 15 straight games. And then you look at across the diamond, a guy like Ronald Torreyes, who has brought a ton of defensive stability to a really leaky defensive situation. And he's had a number of key hits for this team. And he's been a fantastic player for them in a role. But since they've decided to kind of take Alec Boehm out of the lineup and roll with Ronald Torreyes on a day-to-day basis, you know, I just think that certain players are getting overexposed here, and it's just come together at a horrible time and created a really bad situation.
Losing to the worst team in the National League is pretty bad, Bob. But one could also say that we talked about this on Monday. It's not like the Diamondbacks are coming in here playing horrible. They themselves have scored 24 runs in the previous 4-game series versus the Padres, and now the Phillies are going against a Padres team that is reeling themselves. So I want to ask, did they catch the Diamondbacks at the wrong time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Arizona right now is playing about as well as they have all year. That's for sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, when you look at some of the pitching that they faced this week, to not be able to capitalize on that was concerning. And it's not like you had, you know, Madison Bumgarner yesterday, I thought actually threw the ball okay, though he struggled this year. But in those first 2 games, they had a number of hittable pitches against guys that have just struggled from start to finish this year. And they weren't able to do much with it. You know, they were swinging, missing, and elevated fastballs out over the plate. They had a lot of advantageous counts where they had tons of soft contact, whether it be weak flyouts or bouncers to short or left side. So, yeah, I mean, listen, maybe they got Arizona a little bit of a bad time, maybe, but they did not take care of business, and they really just played very poorly. And I don't really know that the opponent mattered so much as what the Phillies were doing on their end.
Bob, speaking of what they're doing on there, and you mentioned Alec Boehm earlier. I got to ask you, because I had someone text in earlier this week. The guy said, I'm done with Boehm. I'm over this kid. And it seems like as time goes on, we're entering a very strange zone with Alec Boehm between he's got the potential, he's got the ability, you see the flashes, but like Jalen Reagor with the Eagles, we need to see more than flashes. We need to see consistency. And it's like at some point you need Alec Boehm to either put up or shut up. So how long do you stick with him before you're like, you know what? You're like Spencer Howard. We got to move on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Phillies, haven't made the postseason since 2011. Patience is short. So I think that a lot of people are taking the macro situation, which has been a poor one now for a decade, and they're starting to kind of lose patience with certain players in certain situations where there probably should be a little bit more granted. Alec Bohm, in a very short sample last year, hit well over 300. He got off to a bad start this year, but then from June 1st through August 4th, the end of that Mets series, the power wasn't there. He wasn't hitting, into the gaps. He wasn't hitting the ball over the fence, but he put together a 2-month stretch where he was hitting over 300 with an OPS north of 800. And so, he's been productive offensively at times this year, but you see the size and what you figure should probably be 25 home run power, 35 double power, and you're not getting it. So even though he was relatively hot in terms of average and OPS for a while, you didn't feel like it because he wasn't doing big damage at the plate. Defensively, I don't think he's a third baseman. I don't think he's going to stick there long term. So they're going to have to come up with some other avenue. But from an offensive standpoint, to give up on this kid or to kind of say that you're done with him, that feels really premature to me.
Bob Wankel joining us here on the Sports Bash. Happy Hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. Bob Wankel CB on Twitter, covering the Phillies for Crossing Broad. With that being said, though, what do you do for the rest of the season with this lineup? Because, some people may rationalize, hey, if you bring Hoskins back, that fixes a lot of these problems, right? But you know what? Even if you bring Hoskins back, it doesn't fix the fact that McCutchen, you mentioned Torreyes, these other guys, they're not hitting. And let's be realistic. Harper hit another solo home run this past series. It's not his fault people aren't getting on base ahead of him, right? So at some point, how much does Hoskins really fix? And how much can you really do this offense till you just hope and pray that maybe somebody wakes up?
Yeah, well, if you look at Brad Miller, it's not just that Rhys Hoskins hasn't been in the lineup. It's that Brad Miller's been really bad at the same time. I mean, the last 7 games, Brad Miller's hitting 105. The last 15 games, he's hitting 150. So, I mean, Hoskins' absence has been exacerbated by Miller's struggles. Now, that being said, Rhys Hoskins comes back. He's a guy that can get on base. He has power potential for you. He's a big piece to this lineup, and getting him back will help. And I actually just think that, to be honest with you, just from a feel standpoint, from just a vibe standpoint, he should provide a little bit of a jolt, assuming that he's effective and can actually play. I mean, he probably will return this weekend, but there's some concern here that he's going to do so at roughly, 75, 80%. So if that groin isn't totally right, is this going to be there? Is he going to be able to turn on pitches? That remains to be seen. I look at Andrew McCutchen since he's come back off the injured list. He's obviously really struggled. The hope there is that, another 5-6 days out, some consistent at-bats, he starts to feel a little bit better, starts to become a little bit more productive. At third base, I honestly feel like you have to go back to Alec Bohm. And I think that they're going to have to pick their spots here. Because I think Freddie Galvis is going to end up playing a lot of shortstop for this team. I mean, Didi Gregorius, whether it's that he's done, whether that he's really dealing with some injury issues and lingering problems with his elbow, he has just been a net negative for this team, especially an offensive standpoint, which is where he's supposed to thrive. So I think that Alec Bohm has to be reintroduced into this lineup just for the offensive potential that he brings still and that they so desperately need right now.
Bob, they're having trouble hitting, but the pitching hasn't been all that bad, right? The pitching has not been horrible. Wheeler pitched very well yesterday. If it wasn't going against Bumgarner, maybe they have a better chance to win that game, right? You look at the rest of the pitching staff, it's not like they're pitching horrible in recent weeks, and now it's Matt Moore again, right? We saw him. He was the last guy they won a game. Nola on Saturday, Gibson back on Sunday. What is a realistic expectations for the Phillies pitching staff against a powerhouse team? Yeah, the Padres have been losing, but they got some great hitters over there.
I would not be overly optimistic about Matt Moore repeating his Saturday performance tonight. Aaron Nola, it's hit or miss. he's probably due to be pretty effective because he hasn't been, so it seems like he just kind of goes on the seesaw. So could we see good Aaron Nola again this weekend? Sure. And Kyle Gibson, basically I think what you saw the other night is what Kyle Gibson is. He'll give you 6 innings. He'll probably give up 2 or 3 runs. And, can the offense hit enough to not waste a quality start? The Phillies this weekend have to find a way to, and I don't know if it's by winning 2 games, if it's just winning 1. They have to find a way to not come home down by more than 5 games in this division. The Braves aren't going to win forever. Atlanta's pieced together 13 out of 15. Atlanta is playing really well right now, but they're not that good. They're not going to sustain that level. They've beat up on a number of really bad teams. Their schedule is going to toughen up a little bit. And the Phillies, once they get through Tampa, when they come back home, things, and I know nobody wants to hear this, they lighten up a little bit again. So I don't think the Phillies season's over, but if this thing gets away from them this weekend where Atlanta goes to Baltimore and sweeps and the Phillies drop 2 out of 3 or get swept in San Diego and they find themselves, 7 games out, I guess they come in 4 out right now. I don't think they're good enough to make up that ground. But if they can just hang on here this weekend and kind of gain some footing, weather the storm, I think a week or 2 from now, fans will be watching this team saying, maybe they can do it still.
With all that being said, if they can still do it, let's say they don't make the charge back, let's say they fall short at the end of the season. They made some moves at the deadline, Bob. They had a chance to win the division. They were in first place. If they don't win the division this year, the blame goes where?
Well, I think that the blame can't really be directed at one person in particular here. A lot of people will blame the manager, who I don't believe has had a great season. But, when Gabe Kapler was dismissed 2 years ago, my response to that was, this isn't really all on him. He just sort of got the blame. And I think you saw fundamental issues wrong with this roster. And Dave Dombrowski is still relatively new to this process, so I can't fault him for taking a team that wasn't that good to begin with. He inherited, wasn't able to get over the hump here at the trade deadline. I think that's a little bit unfair. But they're going to have to look long and hard this offseason at where things have gone wrong. And I think what I sort of suspect is if they don't make the playoffs, Dave Dombrowski, we talk about how aggressive he is. I think he's going to look at this and say, this isn't working. This core does not work together. There's some intangible winning trait that this core seems to lack. And I would not be surprised if he made moves where, you're sitting on your cell phone on a Thursday afternoon at 4:00 and you see a tweet come out and you say, oh my God, how about this move? Where they really try to shake up this roster and flip it upside down. Not saying it's going to be a rebuild, but I think that they may look to really fundamentally alter the DNA of this team.
He is Bob Wankel. Give him a follow on Twitter at Bob Wankel CB as the Phillies finish out the West Coast trip. 10:10 is the time tonight, and then some more reasonable times over the weekend. 8:40, 3:40. Hopefully they can win at least a game or 2 this weekend, because on a happy hour Friday, Bob, I feel like between the Eagles last night and the Phillies this week, every Philadelphia sports fan is being driven to drink right now.
Absolutely. If you're going to stay up and watch the Phillies tonight, I strongly recommend doing it with a drink.
I mean, listen, maybe everyone just needs to have a drink because Jalen Hurts can't have a drink, because when you have a stomach infection, you're supposed to stay away from alcohol for at least a few days. So maybe everyone could have one just for Hurts.
Yeah, just another day in the life of Philadelphia sports, man.
What is Bob Wankel drinking this weekend?
Oh, let's see. I'm covering the game tonight, so no drinks tonight, unfortunately. But tomorrow, we'll probably knock back a few IPAs tomorrow. I don't know quite yet what I'm locking in, but that's probably going to be the way we go. Not a volume weekend, just make a few good ones count.
There you go. And there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody tells you otherwise, they're probably not an adult. So
that's right.
Bob, good stuff. Appreciate you. And I believe Mike Gill will be back on Monday. So fingers crossed his team is playing today. Today is the knockout round. So we'll find out, how his team does this weekend. So, but the theory is that Mike will be back on Monday. So he'll be back with him then.
All right. Good stuff. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Bob Wankel at Bob Wankel CB on Twitter. Check out all of his Phillies coverage over at Crossing Broad. Josh Hennig filling in for the aforementioned Mike Yell here on 97.3 ESPN. It might help if I use the right read sheet here. I got to start throwing out some of these sheets. Too many papers over here. Josh Hennig here telling you about my friends over at Jenkins. Jenkins for heating and air conditioning, installation service, and maintenance. Call Jenkins for all those needs. 609-641-6440. Yes, air conditioning, installation service, and maintenance, plumbing, drain cleaning services. 609-641-6440. Or visit them online at jenkinsplumbingandheating.com. Still to come on the show, we're talking about Eagles with Andrew DiCecco. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. He was at the game last night. We'll get his perspective from the link on the Philadelphia Eagles after a rough night at the football field for the Birds, with Jalen Hurts going down, most of the starters being held out. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer, will join us at 5:25 here on the Happy Hour Friday. We'll get his perspective on the Phils as well. And Pete Thompson, Happy Hour Friday with the PT at 5 p.m. All that and more still to come. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on the Sports Bash. We'll get the Euro messages coming up in just a bit. Text Sports 609-403-0973. Priority messaging through the 973 ESPN mobile app. Direct message the show. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City through the app. And, of course, we are live on YouTube and Twitter. Just follow at 973 ESPN.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schwein, Scott McKay and I will examine the slumping Phillies and if they have enough to stay close with the Atlanta Braves. The Eagles laid an egg Thursday night against the Patriots in their second preseason game. Is it too early to worry? Then we'll hear from a former Eagles cheerleader, Julie Judge, about what it takes to be on the squad and her experiences cheering for the Eagles. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the mobile app.
Everybody knows the best sweet corn in the country is grown right here in the Garden State. This is New Jersey Secretary of Agriculture Doug Fisher. Jersey fresh sweet corn is in season and at your favorite market now. So get some today. Stay loyal to local Jersey fresh sweet corn.
97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube. We got messages to get to throughout the show. Again, every happy hour Friday, I like to hear what you guys are doing this weekend, what you are drinking. Bob Wankel says he's going IPAs. He's not going volume, he's going quality because he has to work this weekend. So covering the Phillies, late nights for him, 10:10 tonight, 8:40 tomorrow. More reasonable, 3:40 on Sunday with the West Coast trip. I know some people are just losing their minds with these Phillies and these Eagles, so I want to hear from you guys throughout the show. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You can direct message the show to 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City, and we are live on YouTube and Twitter. I know early in the show, Jeff Bowden-Pookie said he's going the Heineken route. Joey D. and Ventnor chimes in and says, Eagles were tough to watch last night. Phillies are just barf. I'm doing some surfing this weekend with Corona premieres and some tequila shots with no lime. Also some Texas Hold'em tournament in my shed bar, he says. That's an interesting choice of affairs for Joey D. Always good to hear from him, checking in. Definitely, if anything, Joey D is consistent. He consistently listens to the station, and he consistently goes Corona and tequilas. Okay? Joey D, if nothing else, is consistent. Gotta love that. Over on the YouTube, watching the show at 973 ESPN on YouTube and Twitter, Brian chimes in and says, Fulgham reminds me of Wentz when they let the noise of the fans liking other players in their position get to their head. That's from Brian. You know, it's been said multiple times by people like Jeff Mosher and others who cover the Eagles that apparently Fulgham is somebody who he definitely lets the noise affect him, right? So I think part of Wentz's problem was Wentz was his own worst enemy. Wentz turned into the guy that nobody wants to deal with. You know what I mean? Wentz became the guy that people just weren't fans of anymore because of the fact that he never owned any of his mistakes. He took no responsibility for any of his mistakes. You know, he always gave the cookie cutter answer, and you were just bored out of your mind listening to him. So, to me, when I look at the Fulgham situation, listen, I agree there's something about the noise, but it doesn't matter. You still got to go out there and play. And if he is that fragile, if he's letting the fact that Jalen Reagor and Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins are grabbing the headlines, if you don't have that edge in you, if you don't have that competitive dog, right, then get out of town. Get out of the kitchen. You can't handle the heat, right, is the old saying. I don't need you on my football team if you're that fragile. And listen, I'm going to keep saying it again and again. There's a part of me that wonders, and I've been saying it all week, does Fulgham make this team? And I feel like everyone I've asked about it this week, they've given me a bit of a different answer, okay? Some people say, you know, they don't know if he can make a team. Some people say he's going to make the team by default, right? You know, there's different opinions out there when it comes to, you know, this team. By the way, I want to give you an update on Mike Gill's baseball team. Mike Gill just messaged me a little bit earlier. They're playing a doubleheader today in the knockout tournament. So they just won their game this afternoon, did Mike Gill's baseball team up there in Jamestown, the 13-year-old team. They play again tonight at 7. So these are the knockout rounds. So best of luck to Mike Gill and his team going at it tonight. So they did win again this afternoon. They got to play again tonight at 7 p.m. and keep it tuned to 97.3 ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app will have you updated throughout the weekend. Keep it tuned. So they got to win tonight, though. This is the knockout round. No more round robin, no more qualifiers going on. It's win or go home time now. So we're going to find out about how it goes. You know, sometimes the luck of the draw. You know, one of the things about youth sports that's very different than college or the pros is that sometimes things just don't work out. Some things just don't go your way. And so, I think all of us would love to see Mike Gill's team win. But as far as I'm concerned, even if they don't win the whole thing, they're still winners. Because to get this far, to get this deep and have this much success is awesome and impressive. So definitely I'm hoping that they do win. But, guess what? As Jeff Bonin Pookie says, good luck to Mike Gill and his team. But listen, to me, they're winners either way. To get this far at this age and have this much success is impressive. And I say that as somebody who was not a very good baseball player. I became very self-aware along the way of how good I was not, I should say, at baseball. I was a very, very inconsistent hitter. So to me, I've always said the hardest thing to do in sports is hit a baseball. And to watch these kids go out there and hit way better than I ever did, I'm impressed. Now, maybe my bar is so low that, it doesn't take much to impress me, but still, that's kind of my perspective on this. So definitely excited to see them do well moving forward. So, yeah, Mike Gill's team won this afternoon. They play again tonight, and we'll see what happens. Still to come on the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday, and keep the messages coming. 609-403-0973. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter. You watch the show, join the conversation. And, of course, you can message the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Priority messaging thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Still to come, football at 4. Andrew DiCecco was at the game last night. He was in the building last night, so he will give us a firsthand account of what happened with the game last night. Always good to hear from Andrew, get his analysis on what happened. Obviously, Devonta Smith makes his Eagles debut. No Jalen Hurts. They benched most of the starters last night. So last night's game was about focusing on certain players. As I said, I got these notes here. Certain players, they did good. Other players, I don't know, man. I don't know if some of these guys will make the team. It's definitely something to keep an eye on here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Also, Jeff Kerr will dig deeper into the Eagles and the NFL coming up at 5:25. And don't forget, Happy Hour Friday with Pete Thompson at 5 p.m. Also to come here on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, I love the people online. I got to say this real quick. Tom in the Village chimed in earlier, says, for all the Joe Flacco people, right? Apparently, it's a conversation point online right now that people are emphasizing that Jalen Hurts was always the QB1 and that Flacco was never going to be the starter. Apparently, this is a talking point online. I love what Rob Motti says on Twitter. He says, we should add that Joe Flacco's status was as a backup was always secure regardless of performance. Listen, man, if I understand there's a handful of people who are like, oh, Flacco's a South Jersey guy. Jalen Hurts never done anything. Give me the guy with the experience. This is, it's, I just have to laugh sometimes. At some point, you just can't take certain things too seriously. You can't get too bent out of shape. By the way, for those who may be interested, the Sixers preseason slate of games has been released. The Sixers preseason slate is October 5th at the Toronto Raptors, October 7th at home versus the Charlotte Hornets, October 11th at home versus the Brooklyn Nets, and they wrap it up at the Detroit Pistons on October 15th. So NBA schedules are popping up all over the internet. You can check out the full Sixers schedule over at 973ESPN.com and 973 ESPN mobile app. Coming up next, we'll go back to football. Andrew DiCecco, football at 4. Next, I'm Josh Hennig. Happy Hour Friday.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.
Your relationship just isn't what it used to be. You need more independence. Maybe it's time.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Yes, Football at 4 and a happy hour Friday, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Right now over at InsideTheBirds.com. You can get the latest from Andrew DiCecco and Jeff Mosher after last night's game. And joining us right now, he says each and every Friday, as he's had all summer long, is Andrew DiCecco, as he was at the game last night for an Eagles game that pretty much did not go as a lot of people expected it to go. But either way, I know DiCecco had some great analysis. If you followed him on Twitter at DiCecco NFL, he kept you updated all night long from Lincoln Financial Field. Andrew, how are you doing the day after probably the most ugly Eagles preseason game in a long time?
Doing all right, Josh. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, and listen, to me, and first let's start with this. If Jalen Hurts plays last night, Sirianni admitted that most of the starters would have played. So it's really hard to fully judge the offense when you know that the starting quarterback and the starting offensive line was not out there, correct?
Correct. Those are things that need to be taken into account, and not, you don't want to ever jump to a judgment on what the team's going to look like or could look like, because you have to take into account the pieces that were out there. A lot of these guys in a dream scenario aren't going to be out there when the regular season unfolds in a few weeks. So, yeah, there's some growing pains, no doubt about it, but you know, you really have to sift through it there. But there were a couple positive performances, and certain players like Devontae Smith really benefited from getting his first NFL action.
Let's get into Devontae Smith. You wrote about him extensively over Inside the Birds. You know, aside from the fact that guys like Chad Johnson were salivating over him over there on Twitter, what was your perspective on him? Because it seemed like it took him a couple snaps to really warm back up and get back into it. But those 2 catches he had seemed to be completely on par with the reason why the Eagles drafted him when he got that separation those 2 times.
Right. And I saw someone who was explosive off the line. We saw the route running savvy. He caught a couple balls, but, and the ones that he dropped, he didn't, when he spoke to us after the game, he didn't chalk that up to rust, although it certainly looked that way. He just said I guess I need to go to the judge machine a little bit more. But, I mean, yeah, it was good to get his feet wet. Obviously, the circumstances weren't ideal, but he played 26 snaps last night. That was more than I thought he would play, and you got your first taste of NFL action, and hopefully, I don't know if that'll play next week, but hopefully he'll get that continuity with Jalen Hurts over the next few weeks so they can rekindle that old chemistry that they had dating back to their Alabama days in 2018.
We heard Sirianni say during the week and then last night that he wants his receivers to get as much playing time as possible because he feels it's important for them to get the reps. Do you buy into that philosophy? Do you buy into what Sirianni is preaching about the receiver situation?
Yeah, I think getting those reps is vital, especially when the group is so young. And obviously, you'd like to have the quarterback back that's going to be taking said reps with these guys when the regular season unfolds at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on September 12th. But I mean, nevertheless, they're running routes against NFL corners that aren't their teammates, and they're getting work, and they're able to get critiqued when you get the film back as far as what they need to improve on. Different little subtleties and tendencies that go along with the position that they're able to really hit the microscope on and make sure they're able to iron those things out when the game starts to matter. So I do think it's very vital for the wide receivers to get these reps.
One of the things I'm curious about, Andrew, is also your perspective. You mentioned the starting quarterback. We weren't in the building like you were, so obviously there's a bit of a different vibe and environment when you're actually in the building covering the team. There were people who were trying to assert after the game on social media and on television that the Jalen Hurts stomach infection is what the Adam Schefter report says was all a ruse, and that the Eagles were all along going to bench their starters, even though Nick Sirianni said otherwise. What is your take on the whole Jalen Hurts situation?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and create something that's not there or anything like that. I mean, I do think that it was legitimate. Jalen looked to be all right during pregame warmups. He was out there. He was fully suited, but Nick Sirianni explained extensively. It took a few questions to really get him to elaborate on the circumstance, but he definitely laid it out there and explained what transpired. Jalen was hospitalized and evaluated for abdominal pains, in which he complained about after pregame warmups. There's nothing more, nothing less. There's no conspiracy theories or anything like that. But those are things that you're going to start to see floating around on social media after that. But he did say, Nick Sirianni said that Jalen's all right. He's fine. So we'll see what happens. I don't know that you're going to see him next week, but you could argue that he needs to get at least a quarter in, because he's only played 10 snaps against the Steelers, and he only played 4 games as a starter last season. So to kind of make that jump from 10 games in early August to playing a full slate of snaps against the Falcons in week 1, I mean, that's a pretty gradual jump. I mean, you really need to take a little bit of the next gradual steps, and before you can make that big leap from preseason to the regular season.
Andrew DiCecco joining us here at Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast at DiCecco NFL on Twitter. Check out all of his coverage of the Eagles over at InsideTheBirds.com. He's at the game last night. Andrew, let's hit on the positives before we hit the negatives. Starting offensively, obviously, the 2 catches by Devonta Smith were what a lot of people were talking about. But the other thing I want to ask you about is I thought that we saw something interesting from the Eagles offensively, which was Kenneth Gainwell. I thought he had a very good game last night. I think you got to see in real time why the Eagles drafted and why a lot of people think so highly of him.
Right, and Kenny Gainwell was one of the few bright spots. Like I said, you have to sift through it, but there were some positive plays and certain players that I thought would help themselves. And Kenny Gainwell impressed me in the first game from a receiving standpoint, but he looks a little bit more comfortable as a runner, seeing the field, processing things faster, hitting the hole. And then, of course, he's able to catch the football, which we all know that he can do. I really like his upside and what he can bring to the offense as another dynamic piece to add. Him and Boston Scott presenting a change-up role. You have, of course, Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard to handle most of the heavy lifting. But I think Kenneth Gainwell has sort of gradually improved throughout the summer. And while he might not make a massive impact in the early goings, I do think, Josh, that he will start to factor in after the first quarter of the season.
Explain to the audience how valuable it is having a guy like Gainwell who can also, be split out to play receiver, because they were showing on the television broadcast last night instances when he was at Memphis, he would start in the backfield and they lined him up as a receiver in motion going up against outside corners in college football. So explain the value of having a running back who is that adept at transferring to receiver.
Well, it's a lethal weapon because you're really able to get those guys are used to running in space. And once they get the ball in their hands, they have a physical dimension to their game where they're used to bowling people over or making cuts in the open field. They just have such a more physical dynamic than a receiver does. And they're so much more dangerous and elusive in the open field and in many accounts. And just being able to have that flexibility and a screen pass and things like that, that's an extension of the running game. So I think when you add a weapon like that, he's been compared to Nyheim Hines with the Colts. You saw the different matchups that he was able to create, matchup nightmares he was able to create with the Colts. And I think you're going to see something similar along those lines with Gainwell here in Philadelphia. It's just having a player that can, as a dual purpose back, just presents so many different matchups for defenses that between that and the two tight ends and everything else you have there, if they remain healthy, it's just going to be a very explosive offense.
On the defensive side, I did find a few positives, even though that, they did lose, 35-0. And obviously the final scores really matter. It's a preseason game. But I thought, Andrew, last night was another example of how so much different the Schwartz, the Gannon defenses are, because it seemed like that what we saw from Singleton and Wilson and Bradley, they were flying over the field, grabbing solo tackles. It just feels like every time I watch the Eagles' last two games, Andrew, these linebackers just look better. They look prepared. They look in better position to make plays than they were last year.
Yeah, and if there was anyone out there that still thought that Alex Singleton is just a guy and a replacement level starter, I'm pretty sure that even the skeptics have to be convinced now that he is a legitimate linebacker, legitimate NFL starting linebacker, because he has certain traits that you just can't. They're just innate, right? Like his ability to flow sideline to sideline, his anticipation, his instincts. He had 120 tackles and 11 starts last season. Now, starting a full slate of games, he could very easily have 175 to 200 tackles if he stays on a similar trajectory, which is amazing to think of. But his skill set keeps developing. He's getting a little bit better in pass coverage, and I think that what he brings as a just downhill player, very physical and tenacious, compared to Eric Wilson, who's more of a finesse, fluid linebacker, more with a vast coverage acumen and a lot of those different traits, and he's a little bit more rangy. I think that they really complement each other quite well. And then you have TJ Edwards, who's really taken the next step in his development and broadened his skill set when he was sort of been typecast for the past two seasons as a one-dimensional rundown defender. He had 2 pass breakups last night, and he looks a little bit more comfortable and adept in coverage. I thought that he's really carving out a role and making a case to have a more prominent role on defense. So you suddenly have 3 different linebackers. While they may not all have the highest pedigree, you look at where you found Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards was undrafted, Eric Wilson was discarded from the Vikings. They have certain traits that I think all play off each other very well, and I think you're going to see Jonathan Gannon really put these guys in position to be successful.
One of the few other guys that looked good last night defensively was the guy that Alex Singleton was asked about. Alex Singleton says Milton Williams is a dog when he spoke to the media last night. And I remember 2 specific plays last night where Milton Williams completely disrupted the entire Patriots play. And one of them, they had to hold him on the play because he would have gotten the sack and put the Patriots back. What is your perspective on Milton Williams after the first few weeks for the Eagles?
Just a powerful, versatile defensive lineman that has an ability to really make some noise here in the early part of the season. He can play defensive end. He can play defensive tackle. He's strong. He moves people off the ball. He's good lateral agility. Uses his hands extremely well. Violent hands. I really think that he looks like a player. It's hard to remind yourself that you have to remind yourself sometimes that he is a rookie because he looks like a savvy veteran in the way that he's able to use his skill set and get upfield and really, and he showed the ability to anchor. There's a lot to like with Milton Williams. And when he was drafted, I remember it wasn't necessarily he wasn't greeted with a fanfare, but because it was coming from Louisiana Tech, there's a lot of other players that were more household names, if you will, that were sitting out there. But I was very impressed with Milton Williams and his throughout his college career, and I thought that bringing him in where he didn't have to step in and be an immediate contributor, he can play behind Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox and be that third defensive tackle and then probably take the reins and assume one of the starting roles next season. I thought this year really allowed him to find his footing in the NFL and maximize his reps and sort of build off that in the rest throughout his career. So I think I think he's going to be a really solid player for the Eagles defensive line.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew DiCecco joining us. Check out his full coverage of the Eagles as well as Jeff Mosher's recap over at InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, I got to ask you about some of the negatives. The offensive line, they pretty much had no starters out there last night. The only guy I remember seeing was Seumalo on the field when I watched and rewatched the game. And I thought that there were some mixed reviews with the offensive line. The first game, I thought the backup lineman looked a little better, but in this game, it seemed like that there were some inconsistencies. There were some missed assignments. It seemed like for a group of guys who were fighting for some of the backup spots, I felt that guys like Matt Pryor really didn't do themselves any good last night.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, Nate Herbig played all 53 snaps. Shortly behind him was Matt Pryor. I think he played about 46 snaps, and right around the 90% range. Yeah, I mean, these are guys that I mentioned Matt Pryor on the show, I believe it was last week. He's versatile, but what good is the versatility if you're not competent at any of those positions, right? If you're hesitant to put a player like Matt Pryor in a game situation, I guess it's 4 years into his career now, then what's the point of stashing him on the back end of the roster when you have a developmental player like Brett Toth who has shown signs of progression? Not saying that you would necessarily feel comfortable putting him in a game situation either, but there are other players that are on along those lines, like a Sua Opeta and Driscoll and these type of guys that really have proven that they're taking these next steps in their natural progression. Where if you have a guy like Pryor who's really remained stagnant and not really turned that corner, I think it's time to say goodbye to Matt Pryor and just go with some of these younger guys and work on them and have Jeff Stoutland to continue to develop them.
Second straight week, no catches for Travis Fulgham. He had one target this week, so I guess that's a semi-improvement. I mentioned earlier the other day, Andrew, it seems like every time I've heard anything about Fulgham, it's Sirianni coaching him up or correcting him. We've pretty much seen almost nothing good out of him, whether it's between camp or these games. Is Travis Fulgham potentially playing his way off this roster?
It's 14 snaps, one target. I thought that he was going to be inserted towards the back end of that second quarter. It never happened, and you have to wonder, Josh, what direction the Eagles and Travis Fulgham are headed. They're at a crossroads at a little bit right now because he hasn't had a stellar camp. You have someone like a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside who's also vying for that last job, showed a little bit of promise on special teams, which is vital when you're the fifth or sixth receiver on any roster. You have to have that special teams prowess. I don't know that Travis Fulgham has that. he's sort of been up and down ever since that 4-week stretch. You're starting to wonder, was that the outlier or was that the player that he can be at his best? It's starting to look like that's the outlier because he hasn't quite reached that level. There's no Alshon Jeffrey hovering over him now. And you see all these different guys around him, all these young pieces are putting together, decent camps, and he really hasn't been able to build on his momentum last season. So, I mean, he's running out of time here to really put his stamp on a role. I still think that he's got an inside track, but his stranglehold on that spot is, it's sort of starting to slip away because you have guys like John Hightower and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside who just seem hungrier, quite frankly, when they're going out there and running their routes and blocking and doing all these things you have to do to stand out as a back end player. And it could ultimately come down to next Friday against the Jets, who snags that last spot, because it's that closely contested right now that it's hard to just say, Fogle, he's definitely going to be on the roster. I don't think it's that clear cut right now.
One guy who may or may not be on the roster to start the season is Andre Dillard. He didn't play again last night. He's been week to week out with an injury. And there's reports out there from Jeff McClain and Matt Lombardo that teams apparently are having conversations with the Eagles about his availability. And there are, quote, a few teams interested. But my question, Andrew, is I mentioned this earlier in the week. We saw Greg Little traded. He was the 5th tackle taken in the 2019 draft. He got a 2022 7th-round pick. So Dillard, who was the first tackle taken in that draft, what kind of value does he have considering how little he has played?
You have to think it's going to be right around that neighborhood, maybe a 6th-round pick. But, I mean, I wouldn't be so quick to unload Dillard, right? I mean, you saw what the offensive line looked like last night. The Eagles will be one injury away from for having a guy like a Brett Toth or even a Matt Pryor in there playing that tackle role. And I don't know that's a recipe for disaster, of course, but that's how the depth situation is. Like, that's how scary and thin it is. You get Andre Dillard out of the picture, and then all of a sudden, something happens, let's say week 1 or something, and you have Brett Toth in there protecting Jalen Hurts. So that's a scary thought. And I wouldn't. So if I'm the Eagles, you have to assess everything. And I mean, if a team's offering just a 6th-round pick, let's say, I mean, you have to just weigh the pros and cons. I don't know if that makes much sense.
Any hopes about LaRaven Clark, who apparently has been taken off the PUP, him about possibly being one of the backup tackles, or do you feel like maybe a little bit too little too late for him?
Yeah, LaRaven Clark's interesting because he missed a lot of time with injury, and the Eagles don't have much time to evaluate him to be able to pinpoint what he's able to do. I think when he was signed, Josh, I think what they ultimately wanted him to do was to be that swing tackle, much like Big V was, and found success in that role. But I don't know that. I mean, they need to see what they have in him first and make sure that he's fully recovered from his injury, 1, and 2, that he can play and be a competent reserve should they need him in the event of injury. Time's running out, and I mean, I don't think you can make that move without knowing what you have in LaRaven Clark, because certainly Brett Toth and Matt Pryor aren't the answers if they have to step in for a game or two.
He's in DiCecco Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. He joins us every Tuesday and Friday. He was at the game last night. Check out all of his coverage from the game over at InsideTheBirds.com. Follow him on Twitter at @DiCeccoNFL. And Andrew, one more thing before I let you go. I need to know how tall you are, because the picture of you with Mike K is distinctly taller than I expected. So I need to know, how tall are you so I can gauge how tall Mike K is.
There's a running joke when people ask me how tall I am. I usually say I'm a shade under 5'10", which can mean a lot of things, right? It's generalized, but I believe I'm 5'8".
Okay, so it's not that K is really like super tall. It's just that
he's tall. Mike's tall. Don't get me wrong. He's tall, but I'm also not very tall. So,
well, I mean, they say the average male in the United States is 5'7.5". So whatever that's supposed to mean, I don't know. Listen, man, when I was in high school, they said I was 5'10". I'd never been 5'10" in my life. So trust me, I get it. There's nothing wrong with not being a giant, but it's just I didn't expect Mike K to be that much taller than you. That's all.
Yeah, Mike towers over me for sure. Yeah, he's definitely tall. Don't let the picture fool you. I'm just not super tall.
All right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously, people come from all shapes and sizes. It's all good. I just thought it was funny because I remember seeing the picture last night. I was like, whoa! Like I wasn't expecting that kind of height disparity, but it's all good. Andrew DiCecco at DiCecco NFL on Twitter. Check out all of his work over at InsideTheBirds.com. He'll be back on Tuesday's edition of the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew, great stuff over at Inside the Birds. Keep it up, man.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. Have a good one.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. This hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or by downloading the PropSwap app today. Keep the messages coming in. We got to get to them on the other side. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Also direct messaging through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And as always, we are live on YouTube and Twitter. Just follow at 973 ESPN to watch the show. I'm Josh Hennig. Got you with a happy hour Friday. Talking Eagles, talking Phillies. Happy hour Friday. What are you drinking this weekend? All that and more right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
On some models, excludes Corvette with GM financing, excludes price sale. See dealer for details.
Have you seen what some dealers are now charging for new cars and used vehicles? It's outrageous. But at Bennett Chevrolet, you still pay what GM supplier employees pay for brand new Chevys. Plus, Bennett gives you all the rebates. That's not either or, you get both. And that can save you up to 25% off MSRP. And Bennett has 0% financing available to save you even more. Got a trade? Bennett's paying top dollar. And we mean top dollar. A minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. That's a minimum $7,000 for any old clunker you can tow to our lot. And if it's in good shape, we'll pay more. And we'll buy your vehicle even if you don't buy one of ours. And Bennett makes it so easy. No sales pressure, no negotiating, just pure joy. Because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So you can see why nobody beats Bennett Chevrolet. Nobody. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter, where you can join the show, hang out with us. Happy Hour Friday. After a miserable week for the Phillies and a depressing game last night with the Eagles, might be indulging Happy Hour Friday right now. Let me know what you're consuming this weekend. 609-403-0973. Also live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. And, of course, direct messaging to the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app. This hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit, find out how at PropSwap.com or by downloading the PropSwap app today. And we were talking to you guys earlier with Reid Fowler from DraftKings about whether you want to go over to DraftKings or FanDuel or wherever you want to grab your slips, your betting odds. Listen, there's plus odds right now for all four teams in the NFC East and the NFC West. So let's say you throw a little money on all of those teams. And then what do? Maybe you wait after week 1, week 2, week 3, and then list all of those futures bets on PropSwap. Get a little money back on your investment. Why not? PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. All right, your guys' messages right here. I want to hear from you guys. We're talking a lot of Eagles, a lot of Phillies today. 609-403-0973. Texture says, people are crazy wanting Flacco. You going to tell me you let Wentz go so you could bring in Flacco? Yeah, man, listen, I'm not saying that I'm saying it. I'm just saying there's a contingent of people out there who either don't like Jalen Hurts and think he's in over his head, or they think because Flacco won a Super Bowl that qualifies him to start in the NFL right now, which is, listen, I don't agree with it. I think those people are irrational who think that way. But listen, I think that the problem is that right now there are two kinds of people when it comes to Jalen Hurts. There are the people who say, like me, that this young man is an obvious leader. He's a young man who wants to lead this team. He's the best thing that could have happened to this team, and they need him to take reins of the leadership role and go out there and take charge, right? And he's a guy who's got incredible athletic talent. He's a powerhouse of a physical athlete. He's got a good throwing arm, and he's a guy who's still developing as a quarterback, but he can play in the NFL. The problem is there's another group of people who think that Jalen Hurts, that he'll never be more than what he is right now, that he's not that accurate, and that the Eagles should have gone elsewhere for their starting quarterback to replace Wentz. And that's why some of those people gravitate to Joe Flacco. Again, not what I think. I'm just explaining to everyone out there what some people are thinking. But I agree with you, Texter. There is a strong irrationality. People wanting to go with Flacco as starting quarterback either way. John from Cape May chimes in and says, why aren't the Birds looking at Josh Rosen? Flacco would be a great coach right now, but he's not a capable backup. Thanks, and go Birds. Couple things there. One, I don't know if Flacco can't be a backup. I think I have to disagree a little bit, John. I don't know if he's a capable backup, but I think he's the best of a lot of bad options, right? I think that with Flacco, I think he showed last night, especially on that throw that Richard Rodgers dropped, which was an embarrassment. I mean, you play in the NFL, you're famous for big catches, Richard Rodgers with the Packers and the Eagles, but you couldn't catch a simple throw by Flacco who scrambled away from the blitz. I think Flacco can be a backup quarterback in the NFL. I think last night was just not the best example of what he's capable of because of the fact that a couple drops by the receivers for him. In my count, there were 3. There was the Richard Rodgers drop. Let's see here. The Richard Rodgers drop, the Devonta Smith drop, and I got a drop by Jack Stoll. So those were the drops that Flacco threw last night. So I can't blame a quarterback when the guys are dropping it, when he's putting it on them, or at least in their vicinity. You know, you're paid to catch the ball in the NFL. Why are not the Birds looking at Josh Rosen? I think it a lot has to do with the fact that Rosen was cut by the 49ers in order for them to get down to their minimum roster requirements. And he was on a roster that he was in a no-win situation, right? Because you look at the 49ers roster depth chart, you knew that Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance were going to make the team no matter what. You know, you drafted those guys. You gave that guy a big contract for a reason. So it came down to Nate Sudfeld and Josh Rosen. And for whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan, if you listen to his press conferences, thinks very highly of Nate Sudfeld. And Josh Rosen was always going to have an uphill battle in San Francisco because Sudfeld knows the West Coast offense a little better than Rosen does. Think about the places Rosen has already played in. He played in Miami and he played in Arizona, 2 places with very dysfunctional offenses. So outside of last year where he was on the practice squad for Tampa Bay, his NFL football knowledge is not as advanced as a guy like Sudfeld, who has been on an active NFL roster for a few years now. And because of that, he's a little more advanced in terms of deciphering, digesting, and processing an NFL playbook. So that's really the reason why he's not there. And I think the reason why the Eagles haven't picked up Rosen is because I think that they're trying to play out the string. I think the Eagles are just trying to get through training camp with the 3 quarterbacks they got right now. And they want to use the roster spots they have on other players. Now, you could argue if you wanted to cut Nick Mullins right now and then bring in Josh Rosen for the final preseason game, I wouldn't be against that. I think Nick Mullins has proved very aptly that coming back from that injury that he had, he's not the same quarterback. And I think that he's a little gun shy. He just doesn't have the accuracy and the arm strength anymore. And listen, when you are a quarterback and you have surgery on your elbow, you know, I don't know if he's 100%. I really don't know if he is 100%. But apparently, the Eagles claim and he claims that he's fine. But I don't see the same accuracy and zip on his throws that we saw previously. So, to me, if I were the Eagles, John and Kate May, what I would do is I would cut Nick Mullins right now. I would sign Josh Rosen, and I would tell Rosen outright, I'm like, look, we don't think you're going to make this team, but we want to give a look to see if you can maybe be on a practice squad, okay? And what I would do is I would go into the final game of the season against the Jets, the preseason, and I would have a dress rehearsal in the first quarter. I would put the entire starting unit out there in the first quarter. All starters first quarter, get them that, dress rehearsal run through. Second quarter or mid-second quarter, I'd go to the second unit on offense with Flacco. And then for the second half, I would just go Josh Rosen and all the backups. That's personally what I would do. Because I think that as of right now, that's the strategy that makes the most sense to me, football sense. Because you need to have at least one run-through with your starters in the game. And then, once you have one run-through with the starters, Then you get the other guys out there to see if they can play or not play. You go out there and say, all right, Travis Fulgham, this is your last chance. Jack Stoll, you're playing for a roster spot. John Hightower, go out there and prove yourself, right? And you let them do it with Flacco. You let them do it with Josh Rosen, and you see what happens. And then you tell Rosen, look, we're not promising you a roster spot, but what we are promising you is an opportunity maybe on the practice squad. And to put some good game tape together. Because Rosen right now is going to be a bust. If all things are considered, Rosen is going to be a bust in the NFL unless something drastically changes. And, a lot of people, want to diss on him. Look, I was wrong, all right? I was somebody who thought that Josh Rosen could be an NFL quarterback. And, maybe my bias is I still think he can be an NFL quarterback because to me, I thought he went into an unwinnable situation in Arizona. He went to an even worse situation in Miami before they brought in Brian Flores. He's bounced around practice squads. He's bounced around training camps from the Bucs to the 49ers. I think that he's just in a bad situation right now. I think that he has not been in the best circumstances. And I think that because he has been playing from behind in terms of his development, that I just don't foresee a situation that makes a lot of sense for him moving forward. And I think that a team like the Eagles or another team that could maybe bring him in for the final preseason game to get him some reps out there would benefit him. Listen, we know the Eagles franchise bringing in a lot of camp arms in the past. And I think Nick Mullins just washed at this point. I think Nick Mullins is either washed out as an NFL quarterback or he's not as far along in his recovery from elbow surgery as we all thought. So, John Kate May, that's what I would do. I wouldn't get rid of Flacco because I think you have value in him as a backup quarterback in terms of a guy in the quarterback room, on the field, in the locker room. He's a good guy to have around. But for the final preseason game, you'll need Nick Mullins. I would bail on Nick Mullins right now. I'd call up Josh Rosen. I'd get him on this team. I'd say, you're going to practice all week. And then you would move on from there. That's what I would personally do. Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash, filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. Real quick before I go to the break, Texter says, can DraftKings future bets be sold on PropSwap? Anything can be sold on PropSwap as long as you have the ticket. So you have to go to the brick and mortar, whether it's, so FanDuel is at Bally's, DraftKings is at Resorts, and William Hill is at Ocean, if I remember all the casino properties correctly. So you can go into the brick and mortar, whether it is DraftKings, FanDuel, William Hill, any of those sports books, anywhere, you get the futures bet, and then you can post it on PropSwap. You can't post digital tickets for a variety of legal reasons, which is I don't want to get into right now because I'm not the legal expert when it comes to that. But I know there's a lot of legal reasons why you can't post digital future bets. But you can post any future bet from the brick and mortars. If you go into Atlantic City, go to FanDuel Sportsbook, go to DraftKings Sportsbook, William Hill, get the ticket. Then you could post that on PropSwap. And again, it's PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today, 4 o'clock hour. Brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or by downloading the PropSwap app today. I'm Josh Hennig, hanging out with you on a happy hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Get more of your messages coming up on the other side. Keep them coming. 609-403-0973 is the text board, which is always open for you guys. You can also message us directly through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You have priority messaging through the app. If you message us through the app, your message will be read before anybody else's. And, of course, with the app, you get all of the Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers analysis and coverage, as well as coverage of high school sports here in South Jersey. All right there with the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schweim, Scott McKay and I will examine the slumping Phillies and if they have enough to stay close with the Atlanta Braves. The Eagles laid an egg Thursday night against the Patriots in their second preseason game. Is it too early to worry? Then we'll hear from a former Eagles cheerleader, Julie Judge, about what it takes to be on the squad and her experiences cheering for the Eagles. It's the locker room with Billy Schweim, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the mobile app.
Secretary of Agriculture Doug Fisher here, reminding you that Jersey Fresh eggplant is great fried, baked, or grilled. So many wonderful varieties and colors are available. Be sure to pick up Jersey Fresh eggplant at your favorite farm market or supermarket. Stay loyal to local Jersey Fresh.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig back here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, and we are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. This hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers for great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup. Shop online at DelValAcuraDealers.com. Get some more of your messages here, 609-403-0973. Also, priority messages come in through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And We are live on YouTube and Twitter, where Jeff Bonenpookie says, my manager gave me a blue moon. Well, that's a very friendly manager. Now, my curiosity question with that, Jeff, is, so did your manager give you a blue moon because your manager knows you like blue moon, or because that's what the manager likes and you just have to drink what the manager wants? Because, some people are nice. Some people, like, for example, I work at a place of employment where no one's going to come in here and offer me something that they don't know I would actually want, right? Like, no one's going to come in here and be like, hey, Josh, you want some of this? And I'd be like, not really for me. Like, or I'm never going to be forced to a situation where I have to eat or drink what the boss wants. I'm very fortunate like that. I don't have a job like that. So I'm just curious, Jeff, like, did your boss give that to you because your boss is like, hey, I know Jeff likes a blue moon? Or is it one of those deals where, like, the boss bought blue moons because the boss likes blue moons and everyone else has to drink those blue moons? I'm just saying there's a little bit of a difference. You know what I mean? So, by the way, Jeff also says he was really ticked off when Richard Rodgers dropped that pass. That was a horrible drop by Rodgers last night. I'm just, I understand that as a fact of life that drops happen. Like, I understand that these things happen. Anybody can drop a pass anytime, but it feels like at some point you're paid to catch balls in the NFL. And when Flacco's running away from the blitz and he makes the throw on the run, he puts it right on you and you don't catch it, it's just a horrible look. You know what I mean? It's one thing if the guy, underthrows the ball and doesn't make a great throw or something like that happens. Or there's a difference between that and the quarterback literally putting it in range for you and you can't make the catch. To me, they're just two different things. So I'm with you, Jeff. The Rodgers drop, it was pretty bad look. Message over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Texter says, by the way, you can now be as negative as you want on the Phillies. We just got swept by the worst team in all of baseball. Well, the problem is, Texter, no matter how negative you are about the Phillies, they still have a chance to win the division. So it's a catch-22, right? They can still win the division for as horrible as they've played this week. 4-game losing streak and all. And they're still only 4 games behind the Braves. And they're 1 game over 500. So for as negative as they've looked recently, they can still win the division. They just have to get their bats woken up. It's a strange proposition for the Phillies because on one hand, if you're going to struggle, you'd rather do it on August 20th than September 20th, right? You'd rather get the bad games out of the way now than later in the year. But at the same time, if you play too poorly for too long, you'll be too far out of range to win the division. So by getting the bad games out of the way in August, you played your way out of winning the division in September. Like, let's say they go into the Padres series and they win 2 out of 3 somehow. And then they come back and they split the series with Tampa, right? So now you're 3-2 in your last 5. Then you got Arizona coming to your house. Let's say somehow you beat up on Arizona because it's at Citizens Bank Park and that, you have some sort of magic elixir when you came home, right? Poor road trip. You get it, you shake off the dust off your feet. You come back home, right? And let's say you get, 3 out of 4 against Arizona. Then you get 2 out of 3 against Washington. And then you get 2 out of 3 against Miami. By the time Labor Day comes along on September 6th, when you play the Brewers, you're winning more games than you're losing. You're back to winning series. So, I'm just saying, I wonder, and I'm curious about how many losses does it take to keep you out of range to win the division? I don't know. I don't have the actual answer to that because I think some of that depends on what the Phillies do and what the Braves do. Because The thing with the Braves is, if the Phillies have supposedly the easiest schedule in baseball, the Braves have, the fifth easiest schedule in baseball according to ESPN Stats and Info. And the Braves, while you're playing the Padres this weekend, the Braves are playing the Orioles. Orioles are a bad team. And then next week, when you're playing Tampa, the Braves are playing the Yankees, who are one of the hottest teams in baseball. And then when you're playing the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Washington Nationals, the Braves are playing the Giants and the Dodgers. And when you're playing the Marlins, the Braves are playing the Rockies. So the schedule kind of recalibrates in your favor. If you can start winning a couple series or splitting a couple series coming up, and the Braves have to deal with the Giants and the Dodgers for some of that stretch, it gives you an opportunity to gain ground. So while we can be negative at the Phillies, and I am exasperated with this baseball team, they are so frustrating. There's still a chance you could win this division. But when you get swept by the worst team in the National League, it's hard not to be negative. When you score 2.3 runs per game, 2.3 runs per game in your last 9 games, and in those 9 games, you only won 2 of them. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But like I said, I'm not going to sit here and bury this team. But I am frustrated because I expect more of them. I know they can play better. I know they can do better. By the way, the texture follows up, says, Phillies get in the playoffs. What? Why? So we can get knocked out in the first round? It doesn't matter at all. Our pitching sucks. Alec Boehm stinks, etc. The Boehm thing isn't going away. It's really not. On the other side, Happy Hour Friday with the PT. Pete Thompson joins us next. And then CBS Sports NFL writer Jeff Kerr at 5:25.
Hey, everybody, it's Mike Gill again from my guys over at PropSwap.com and the PropSwap app. Well, prop swappers all over continue to make money. And Luke Pergandy, right now, let's find out. How's the market been for Bryce Harper MVP and Zach Wheeler for Cy Young?
Yeah, Tatis Jr. coming back on Sunday and smacking 4 RBIs and 2 home runs is not helping Bryce's chances. So Tatis Jr., it is his award to lose. However, yeah, like we discussed, Bryce's odds still 4-1. 2 weeks ago, 60-1. So if you've got a Bryce Harper ticket at 60-1 or 50-1 or 40-1, this may be the time for you to list it for sale. We've got buyers for you. And if Tatis keeps hitting the way he is, Bryce will not win this award.
All right, we know those are the 2 big local tickets going on, but what else is popping up right now on PropSwap?
Yeah, we've got a Raiders to win 1 game ticket. So the Raiders win total is 3.5 on a 17-game season this year. Pretty paltry number at 3.5. Some guy in Ocean grabbed the Raiders to win 1 game at 500-1 odds. So really interesting ticket. He's got it up for sale right now. Are we, is he saying, or does PropSwap say that like the Raiders are going to win 1 game? Probably not, but he's trying to PropSwap this thing. So if the Raiders start out 0-4, 0-5, they got a pretty tough schedule of Philly going to Vegas, Bears going to Vegas, I believe Tampa goes to Vegas, a difficult schedule. That 500-1 ticket improves in value a ton.
It's PropSwap.com and the PropSwap app. Download it today. Download it now and start prop swapping. Luke, thank you as always.
Thank you, Mike.
PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
Josh Hennig, Happy Hour Friday, 5 o'clock hour here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And we are live as always on YouTube and Twitter. As he has done all summer long, Pete Thompson joins us for Happy Hour Friday, although via the phone today here on 97.3 ESPN. As Pete, it's been a bit of a depressing week in Philly sports. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm a little annoyed. I mean, what's going on with the Phillies, the Eagles, just a total turkey of a game last night. I settled in for that. What? You know, what the hell is going on?
Well, I mean, part of it was it's not Jalen Hurts' fault that he had a stomach infection. So, I mean, you know.
Now, wait a second here. Now, I got a bone to pick with you. Is it possible that you might be too close to this situation, that you're imprinting your previous own stomach issues onto, you know, what if it really is a cover-up? And here you are defending the guy till you're blue in the face.
I am going to defend the guy if he went to the hospital, Pete. Come on.
Oh, that's part of the cover-up. They set him there so the optics would look good.
Oh, stop it. You think a hospital is going to play around with a ruse?
Well, absolutely. All they have to do is send him there. You don't think the Eagles have a relationship with one of their team doctors where they send the guy there, get him checked out, give him a hospital bracelet, make it all look good in case anybody wants to go all Watergate on him and do the due diligence? I mean, look, at the end of the day, I have a hard time understanding how a guy can be dancing around and bopping to the music and said he wanted to play, and then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, he had real abdominal pain. Like, it sure didn't look like it. He was out there doing the damn jitterbug.
Well, Pete, for as long as you've known me, if you didn't know I was dealing with health problems that was for the last 18 months, you wouldn't know better either.
That's true. And again, I'm only saying that it's possible you may be biased in your opinion because you've had your own issues. Now,
I'm just saying that some of us are too tough-headed, hard-headed, too resilient for our own good, and we still show up and try to do the job when we should probably take a week off.
Yeah, it was weird, though. No matter what side of the coin you fall on, it was weird.
Well, Pete, the thing that was weird to me wasn't what happened to Hurts. It was Sirianni's reaction, because Sirianni literally admitted after the game that, well, when we realized Hurts wasn't going to play, we just pulled everybody. I was like, well, that's a strange reaction to have. You basically just said that the quarterback isn't there, so we're going to tell everybody else who's a starter to sit down.
Yeah, I had a problem with that as well. I mean, just because he's not playing, don't the other guys need reps too? Yeah, it really was. I mean, before you sit there and he needs to play. He needs to play some football, Jalen Hurts does, or other guys need to play football, in my opinion. So I thought it was a real disappointment. You know, our grand poobah, if you will, the boss of all bosses, Mike Rubel, took his two sons to that game last night, and I'd like to know how Mike Rubel explained to them what that product was on the field, because that starts with a C and ends with a P, and it's got a raw in the middle of it.
Well, I will. How about this? How about you send him a text, and maybe you can report about it on Sunday on the Locker Room with Billy Schwein.
Sounds good. All right, I'll do a little investigating.
Now, with all that being said, Pete, despite the final score, as I said earlier in the show, I think there are still some positives to take from the game. because we finally got to see Devonta Smith. He's obviously recovered from that knee sprain because in order for him to get the separation he did last night on those 2 catches, he can't be planting on a knee that's hurt and still be able to get separation like that.
Yeah, and he got separation on the ones he didn't catch. I mean, bottom line is Devonta Smith is there's a reason that he was the Heisman Trophy winner and that, he's the threat that everybody says that he is. A couple drops, fine, but, that happens. I mean, those 2 catches and like you said, he's able to, it looks like any time he's able to have his way with the D-back or the corner or whoever's trying to cover him, and that's exciting to me.
Well, you got to be excited because realistically, how many years have we seen guys not get separation from defensive backs with the Eagles? Now we finally have a guy who does, and he looks like he's the best thing since sliced bread, Pete.
Years feels like decades. I mean, it's been forever.
Well, who would you say? Like Jeremy Maclin, Terrell Owens? Like who are you going with?
I would go with T.O. Macklin, his first season was good, but he kind of had speed and a little bit of separation. But I thought T.O. was like the first legitimate great route runner since, good Lord.
Mike Quick?
I mean, yeah, probably. You'd have to go back to Quick, right? Because, I mean, Fred Barnett had speed, right? But it's really hard to find Eagles like, that's the list that's a challenge to make. If you sat there and said, list me off 10 premium Eagles wide receivers, people would be like, can I just start a list of 10 that stunk?
Well, Pete, I actually did that a few weeks ago. I made my own list of the 10 best receivers in Eagles history, and my number 1 was Harold Carmichael. My number 2 was Mike Quick. So any problems with that list?
Not at all. Harold Carmichael's in the Hall of Fame, and Mike Quick was the guy that supplanted him. I mean, now, like, does your history go back far enough to include a Harold Jackson?
Harold Jackson was number 9 on my list.
Oh, good. All right, very good. Was Tommy McDonald on the list?
Tommy was number 3.
All right, excellent. I like to see that. Good. So you're all encompassing on this list. This is good, Josh.
Yeah,
I'm very pleased.
Just to give you a quick rundown, because it's a shame you didn't actually read it when I posted it, but so Harold, so Carmichael was 1, Quick was 2, McDonald was 3. Then I had Deshaun Jackson at 4.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Deshaun, the Deshaun 1.0, not 2.0. The first go round of Deshaun was amazing. Yes.
Number 5, I had Irving Fryer.
Ooh, wow! Look at Irving slipping in there. That's a Cornhusker, I got no complaints with that. He was kind of better everywhere but the Eagles, but he still was a professional.
Well, he did have 2 Pro Bowl seasons with the Eagles, and he finished top 10 in NFL receiving yards in 96 and 97 in an Eagles uniform. Also, his 63.9 receiving yards per game is 6th most in Eagles franchise history.
Nice. So Irving Fryer's on the list. How many more?
Okay, they got T.O. at 6 because obviously that 1 year and two games apparently was such a huge impact that he ended up a couple places on the all-time list.
I mean, if he and number 5 could have just got along, don't you think they might have found a way back to another Super Bowl?
You would assume so. By the way, T.O.'s 14 receiving touchdowns is a single-season Eagles record to this day.
He was amazing. I was there for every one of those home games. Remember, that was the first year of the TV 40. I came back from Nebraska. I was covering them all.
Then you had Maclin on 7 on my list.
Jeremy Maclin. Okay. All right. I'll give you that.
Macklin's top 10 in Eagles history in receiving yards, catches, and receiving touchdowns.
Okay.
Then I have Fred Barnett at number 8.
Love Arkansas Fred. Love him. Love that play in Buffalo where went right to left on your TV screen where somehow Randall evaded the sack and the bear paw of Bruce Smith. He had like a third eye in the back of his head, ducked underneath it, got up and chucked it right down the middle of the field, and there was Fred Barnett running underneath it.
So I have Harold Jackson at number 9. You mentioned him earlier. He was a first-team All-Pro with the Eagles in 1973, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I might catch you on that one, so I'm impressed. This is a good list, Josh.
And then number 10, I have Chris Carter.
Chris Carter got cut because all he does is catch touchdowns.
But guess what? He had 11 receiving touchdowns in 1989. There's only 3 Eagles who have ever caught as many or more touchdowns in a season than Chris Carter in an Eagles uniform.
Yep, but we cut him. But it wasn't because he couldn't catch the football. We cut him because of his off-the-field antics, and he'll be the first to tell you that Buddy Ryan cutting him saved his life, probably. He was going down a wrong path.
And then my honorable mentions. You ready for these?
Sure.
Charlie Smith.
Okay.
Ben Hawkins.
Ben Hawkins. Jeez, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. And?
Jason Avant.
Huh. Vaughn was a good clutch third down guy. Not much more than that.
Well, he's top 15 in Eagles franchise history in receptions and receiving yards. So,
yeah, I mean he was Donovan McNabb's safety blanket.
And then Calvin Williams was the other honorable mention.
Ooh, Calvin Williams. Yeah, there you go. All right, that's not a bad list, Josh. I think you did pretty well. Hey, my girlfriend and I are going to see tonight.
What's that?
We're going to go see John Dorenbos at the Borgata. He's going to perform some magic tricks and stuff for us.
Oh, there you go. Dorenbos is back on tour?
If Dorenbos had been in the game last night instead of Nate Herbig, do you think the ball would have gone that high over Joe Flacco's head that totally changed the complexion? I mean, that right off the bat, I was already in a salty mood because the Phillies were so crappy. And then, the Eagles game starts, I'm like, well, at least I could settle in. And I had it muted. I'm like, wait a minute, they're on spuds for a while here. What's he talking about? I unmuted. I hear the thing about Hurts isn't playing. Oh, okay. And then, it almost seemed like, what was it, the second or third play of the game, and they snapped it over his head? Brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah, no, you're right, Pete. It definitely is brutal. Although part of me is wondering if Dorenbos was back there, he would have been accurate with the snap, but he would have snapped it maybe too hard. Because, to be a long snapper, you got to put some velocity on that thing.
Right. I still think he would have been more accurate than poor Nate Herbig was last night.
Oh, I'm not denying accuracy. I'm just saying he might have, broken Flacco's finger.
Yeah, but that may not be a bad thing. Joe Flacco wasn't very good last night either. I mean, none of the guys were good. I know he didn't have a lot out there, but...
Well, they also had 3 drops last night, so we got to factor that in.
I guess, and it's preseason, and it doesn't count. But I mean, the preseason's running out here. 10 for 17 for 83 yards and that bad interception. The longest throw, first of all, 46.9 passer rating, and then the longest completion he had was that 12-yard catch and run by Kenny Gainwell.
Well, Pete, earlier in the show, John from Cape May texted in and says that we should sign Josh Rosen and cut Joe Flacco. And I said, I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, I heard you talking about Rosen's numbers when I got in the car from the doctor's office, and I was wondering why. Now I know why.
Yeah, well, my theory, Pete, is this: if I would cut Nick Mullins, that's what I would do if I was to go bring in Josh Rosen.
He's been brutally bad
because I think that Nick Mullins and the Eagles, they're all lying. This is where I think there is a conspiracy. I think everyone's lying about Nick Mullins' health. I think Nick Mullins is not fully recovered from that elbow surgery because his arm is not the same as it was when he was starting for the 49ers. He is not at the same velocity. He does not have the same confidence in his throws. To me, if I'm the Eagles, I would cut him. I would bring in Josh Rosen, and I'd be like, all right, listen, Rosen, we're not promising you a roster spot, but we're promising you a week of joint practices and game tape for an entire half in the second half of the Jets game, and then you may or may not make our practice squad.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Where do I sign? Sure, I'll endorse that.
All right, I've gotten PT to do 2 things here on Happy Hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN.
Yeah, I like your receiver list. And by the way, I'll read anything you write. It's just there's a lot that comes through the phone. If you want me to read something specifically, just text me and I'll read it.
All right, fine. I'll keep that in mind for next time. How about that?
Right. I mean, I felt like you were browbeating me a little for not reading it. I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't browbeating you. I was just surprised because you tend to, see everything that's on the website. So I'm just assuming that just got, lost in translation kind of thing.
That's exactly right. Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson, lost in translation. That's exactly what it was. And I heard you talking about Kenny Gainwell. I thought Gainwell was good last night, 5 for 21 and a couple catches, 3 catches for 23 yards. I mean, it was limited, but at least he looked like he was doing something. And keep in mind, he was doing something behind a kind of a train wreck of an offensive line last night. So any positive yardage would be great with starters in. Yeah,
train wreck is understated because I think Matt Pryor has gotten worse every year, Pete. I think that this dude, ever since the Seattle game 2 years ago, he's gotten worse with every time he's on the field.
Yeah, I saw one beat writer say, "Goodness gracious, why on earth is Matt Pryor on this football team?"
I mean,
speaking of the beat writers, last night's game was Paul Domowich's last Eagles game.
And didn't you guys have Damo on the locker room with Billy Schweim a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, something like that. But Damo, I just wanted to tip my cap to him. He did it for a long time and did it really, really well. And in some sort of karma, it's kind of fitting that he goes out on the stinker. You know what I mean? Like he didn't get to go out on a high note, unfortunately, but he was a good guy to see on the beat. I always enjoyed his insights.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Damo is that he never shied away from an opinion, and he always stuck to his guns. If he had a perspective or felt a certain way about a player or the team or anything like that, he was never the guy who was easily swayed or manipulated. You know what I mean?
Very much so. Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying. And look, the people like that are hard to find, nowadays. So good on him. Enjoy your retirement. I'll be sad not to see you out there for sure.
Of course, I had to mention that he was on the locker room because Billy might be listening and he'll text us and be like, he was on the locker room.
Oh yeah, Billy always is listening, and if he's not,
well, no, he's not always listening, but he just happens to listen at the most random times.
Damo had one question last night, I believe, and it was talking about they had the 21 personnel that they came out in, and he was talking about the running game a little bit and how they're going to use that personnel. So he did have a question in that, and then he followed up with about Kenny Gainwell.
By the way,
so he had two in there.
Speaking of people getting questions in, did you? I laughed. I want to know if you laughed. Sal Powell getting like 4 questions in a row, peppering Sirianni about Hurts.
Oh yeah, well, that ought to tell you that it wasn't just me that thought this was a bunch of hooey that they were shoveling. Sal Powell was like, "Wait a second, something doesn't smell right here." He was upset about it. Look, you can yell at me all you want, but if Sal Powell's making a beef, there's probably something there. Or maybe it's just because he wasn't told ahead of time.
Well, no, I think it's the latter. I think the problem is guys like Sal and the other media reporters felt the Eagles were, not being transparent because, if you were watching the game, Sirianni said at halftime that he was like, well, I'll have more details about that after the game. Right now, we're focusing on who's actually on the field. And it's like, dude, this is big news that your quarterback went to the hospital with an illness, and it took Adam Schefter to break the news to clarify everything for everybody because apparently the Eagles were trying to focus on the game.
Right. You can't downplay that when your starting quarterback goes to the hospital. I would agree with that. But I think they were all trying to fit their narrative. That's my opinion. I know you don't agree, but
we will have to agree to disagree like adults instead of children on Twitter. How about that?
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that. Totally.
Happy hour with Pete Thompson here on 97.3 ESPN. Pete, I can't have you on and not mention the debacle that is the Phillies losing 4 straight, averaging 2.3 runs per game in the last 9. How frustrated are you with the guys with the big P's on their hats?
I mean, when you looked at the rotation, Gibson, Suarez, and Wheeler were the 3 pitchers that went. I thought, all right, they've got a good chance. And it actually, as poor as some of the pitchers were, and that wasn't your best Zach Wheeler, really you got to blame the bat. You know what I mean? Over their last 9 games, they're 2-7. Their team batting average is 181. They've scored a measly 2.3 runs per game, and they've struck out 75 times. You look at the series, they went 7 for 60 in the series against the Diamondbacks with a total of 4 runs. Sorry, that isn't going to get it done. And there's I think JT's comments after the game yesterday were the best because I think he fully admitted too, hey, we can't just walk out and think we've got the better record, we're going to win. It doesn't work that way. But boy, the stuff that I saw afterwards, I mean, you got to go back 52 years, Josh, to find a series in which the Phillies were embarrassed as much as they were those last 3 days in Arizona. 1969 was the last time they got swept in a series of 3 or more games by a team that entered the series with a winning percentage of .320 or lower. That is pathetic with a capital P, which stands for Phillies, but stands for frustrating.
So, Pete, are you selling on the Phillies? Are you still hanging on to hope? Where does the PT stand on the Phillies right now as of this weekend? Because they got the weekend with the Padres, then they come home with the Tampa for 2 games, but then they have 4 against Arizona, 3 with Washington, 3 with Miami. So in theory, when their schedule gets easier, the Braves got to play the Giants and the Dodgers. So do you still have hope?
Oh, yeah, and you said it right when I was getting close to I was just first in the car. You said that, they're even as bad as they've played, they're not out of it yet. It's like the Monty Python line. Burning out, you're dead. I'm not dead yet. I'm quite all right. I'm feeling okay. Nope, get on the cart. No, they're not dead yet. And as far as the Tampa series or how these, so tonight I'm going to John Dorenbos, right? So by the time we get home from Dorenbos, we'll turn it on. If they're getting their ass beat, we're going to watch NCIS. If they're actually in the game, we'll watch it a little bit. Then tomorrow, I may take a look. But, these late starts, the San Diego starts, and I'm going to the game on Tuesday, Josh. So when they return home, if there's any game I want them to win in the next 10 games, win on Tuesday when I am there.
Oh, well, that's an interesting twist. Let me hold on really quick. I'm going to pull up who the starting pitchers are for that game and see how you feel about it, okay?
You might break my heart, but yes, let me hear what you got.
You said Tuesday, correct?
The projected starting pitchers for Tuesday's game against Tampa
are Ranger Suarez for the Phillies.
Okay.
And Ryan Yarborough for the Rays, who is their infamous opener starter who only pitches 3 innings anyway.
Yeah, so you basically have the backwards guy against the backwards guy. I mean, that's what they're trying to do with Suarez now, is they keep trying to stretch him out a little bit more and more. So, well, that could lead to a lot of offense. I heard you say that too. Once they get back home, they love to play at Citizens Bank Park.
Now, the problem is, Pete, you're going to want to hit yourself because Wheeler pitches on Wednesday.
Yeah, but what if you get the Wheeler that was out in Arizona? That's not the good Wheeler.
Well, Pete, he pitched well for 6 innings, just his 7th inning when he fell apart.
That's true, but Cy Young winners don't fall apart.
That's true, but then again, who else is going to win the Cy Young? Walker Buehler?
He is a pretty good pitcher, but you're right. I mean, I listen to that. Certain things that are on the station that are pre-recorded don't age well. I listened to Gil's prop swap thing right before I came on, where he was talking about Bryce Harper MVP and Zach Wheeler Cy Young, and I'm thinking that's not aging well.
Oh, listen, Pete. I mean, Wheeler can still win the Cy Young if he pitches well the rest of the year. And realistically, like I said, it's not like he has a lot of competition because there's word that DeGrom may be done for the entire year. So it's him, Bob Woodruff, which is ironic. There's a guy who named after the famous journalist.
Woodruff. We're talking about Watergate. You said Bob Woodruff.
Well, he pitches for the Brewers. Don't you know that?
Oh, that was Bob Woodward. I'm sorry. Bob Woodruff was an ABC News reporter that got an IED went off when he was over and embedded with the troops, and then he was never the same. That's who that guy is.
Yeah, Bob Woodward is the journalist.
Yeah, I know. I fixed it. And by the way, the Mets picked up former Philly Heath Hembree, so that ought to tell you how bad the Mets pitching is right now.
Well, the Mets are a disaster. They were hoping for Noah Syndergaard to come back, Pete, and he ain't coming back anytime soon either.
That's right. Beat the Mets. Fine with that. Beat the Braves somehow. That's the more big pressing concern.
All right, Pete. Before I let you go, I know you're going to be back in with Billy Schweim this Sunday. Billy Schweim claims that you guys have a special guest on Sunday.
That's correct. Backs are in the eye. Receiver split. Merrill Reese is going to come on with us. My boy Merrill. Yes. So I'm excited. Sent him a nice little text. He said, absolutely. I'd be thrilled to join you. He'll be on with us at 10:30 on Sunday morning. We're looking forward to it.
There you go. Pete Thompson, Billy Schweim, Sunday in the Locker Room here on 97.3 ESPN. Then Pete will be back on Tuesday. Mike Gill will be back on Tuesday. Pete, they won their first game today, and they have another game in the knockout round tonight. So 7 p.m. tonight, they're back at it.
Yeah, they just got to keep winning. I know now it's win or go home, so just keep winning. JKW, just keep winning. Hey, give my best to Jeff Kerr, will you? He had a very nice tweet about me, so I thought that was very nice.
I will pass it along, although it looks like he's in the back room right now, so he might have already heard you.
Well, he's probably wondering why Thompson won't shut up so he can get on.
All right, Pete. I'll catch you later. Hopefully, the next time we do this, you'll actually be on the video, because pretty much the only people who have done videos today are Jeff Kerr and Bob Wankel. I've been staring at pictures of everybody all day long.
Sorry, buddy. Yeah, that was outside my control. But yeah, and fingers crossed for Tuesday. There's a chance I might have to go a little earlier, but we'll see how it plays out.
Well, you might have to negotiate that with the man who usually sits in this chair.
Sounds good. I understand.
All right, Pete. Have a good weekend.
Take care, buddy. You too. Bye now.
Pete Thompson joining us here. Happy Hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. Yes, Jeff Kerr will join us coming up next. There he is, giving a little thumbs up, saying hi to everybody. So we'll see with Jeff coming up on the other side right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter. Watch the show. Join the conversation here on a Happy Hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
On some models excludes Corvette with GM financing, excludes price sale. See dealer for details.
Have you seen what some dealers are now charging for new cars and used vehicles? It's outrageous. But at Bennett Chevrolet, you still pay what GM supplier employees pay for brand new Chevys. Plus, Bennett gives you all the rebates. That's not either or. You get both. And that can save you up to 25% off MSRP. And Bennett has 0% financing available to save you even more. Got a trade? Bennett's paying top dollar. And we mean top dollar. A minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. That's a minimum $7,000 for any old clunker you can tow to our lot. And if it's in good shape, we'll pay more. And we'll buy your vehicle even if you don't buy one of ours. And Bennett makes it so easy. No sales pressure, no negotiating, just pure joy. Because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So you can see why nobody beats Bennett Chevrolet. Nobody. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Free thanks to First Bank and CLC. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter. And joining us right now to talk more about the Eagles and the NFL. Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports, being brought to you today by Calvi Electric Company in Atlantic City and their new residential division, here to help with all your home and business electrical needs. Online at calvielectric.com. And yes, Jeff Kerr joins us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff, how are you doing today? Hold on one sec. I hit the wrong button. It's one of those days, Jeff. That's not the reason. It's one of those days where the Phillies are playing horrible. The Eagles had a debacle last night. Everyone is not on the stream, so it's a little more complicated with the buttons on the board for me. So I'm coming down the home stretch with a car that the tires are still getting a little bald, okay?
I'm at the point with the Phillies right now. I watch every inning of every game. I've been doing that for pretty much 25 years. I may need to take a break from this team. I can't stand this baseball team. It is the fact that they just do not play Alec Boehm and try to justify having Didi Gregorius in that lineup is mind-boggling to me. I'm sorry. It's like they're both, at this point, they're both the same player. It's just play them both. I don't care anymore.
All right. Well, I got to check in with you because Pete Thompson disagreed with me about something vehemently earlier. And I opened the show talking about this. And apparently there are some people, even after my extensive explanation, who still disagree with me. So I basically opened the show today, which was about almost 4 hours ago, Jeff, calling out all the people online and on TV who were saying that the Jalen Hurts being sick was all a charade and that the Eagles were using it as an excuse to not play him or the starting offensive lineman. I think that's a bunch of bull. People are calling them out because honestly, as someone who's had numerous health issues with my GI tract, when you have pain in your abdomen and you have a stomach infection, that's actually pretty serious. So to me, I don't think you go to the hospital for no reason, but apparently there are people out there who think this was all a charade.
So are you taking the stance it was a charade, or are you taking the stance of, okay, like this has happened to me before and this is how serious it can get? That's how I'm confused.
The latter, that this has happened to me before and I know how serious this can get.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, look, the guy went to the hospital. There was something wrong with him. And, it does happen, like, just automatically. Like, I've never had something like that, like gastrointestinal, like that serious. But I can see where that's coming from. Look, and I look at it this way. I've talked to NFL player, and I've experienced this myself over the past week. I had a sciatic nerve. You can do stuff to an extent, but if that thing pinches just like 1 inch, forget it. Like, all of a sudden you want to go on a run, forget it. You want to walk, forget it. You want to drive a car, forget it. It's kind of like the same thing with Jalen Hurts. That's why I was like, okay, like it's bad timing. I get it. It kind of looks bad until the Eagles come out with information, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I was kind of bummed he wasn't playing, but when you hear the whole story, I mean, the guy's not even going to be around till Sunday. I mean, this is pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, and I was explaining earlier, Jeff, because I went through my own months and months of I was going through tests. I had to go to the hospital at one point. I was a quote unquote COVID case because they brought in the hazmat suits because they didn't know what's wrong with me. That was a fun experience. But the point is that it was all because of GI tract issues. They had to diagnose and it took months and months to figure out. But guess what? I was still coming to work half keeled over doing the shows and doing all my work. So yes, you can work through these things, but as an athlete, one of the main side effects of a stomach infection is dehydration. And how many horror stories we've heard about guys getting dehydrated and getting cramps or collapsing or something happening. So to me, I think the Eagles were protecting Hurts from himself.
I think they were too. Like, if this was a regular season game, I don't think you could stop Jalen Hurts from playing, or at least he goes out there. But, it's funny, Josh. All these years, fans were getting on Donovan McNabb. He puked in the Super Bowl, or he puked in Jacksonville. He puked twice in Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken. I think he puked in Tampa, too. Sometimes it's not that you're out of shape, it's dehydration. And yeah, you're right. I think they did protect Jalen Hurts from himself. And Nick Sirianni said, look, this is a preseason game, dude. Don't go out there and do something completely stupid. I need you on September 12th. I need you 3 weeks from Sunday. I don't need you in a meaningless game that Bill Belichick likes to run the score for because he doesn't take a day off. Like, oh, and by the way, if I got to hear one more person say how great Cam Newton was last night, I'm going to lose my gourd because he did not play against a first-team defense.
All right, well, let's
overreaction.
Let's go there then, Jeff, because you opened that door and you cover all the NFL for CBS Sports, not just the Eagles. What is your stance on the quarterback competition? Because I think that there were moments last night where, like you said, these guys are playing against second, third, fourth teamers last night. So it's hard to judge Newton and Jones in that scenario.
And that's the thing. I think Mac Jones should be the starter week 1, regardless. I've been saying that for months and months and months. I don't care what Cam Newton does. I don't care how good he looks. I think Cam Newton is not the Cam Newton from the Carolina Panthers before he had the major shoulder surgery and the foot injury and everything else he had. You know, he's banged up. Now, if Cam Newton gets the job, so be it. But I think the Patriots got to look in the rearview mirror here, if you will, and say, look, we're not better than the Dolphins. We're not better than the Bills. Let's just play this kid, go 9-8, 10-7, whatever, make a run and build this team for the future. Because, I mean, I do think they have a good enough roster to go to the postseason, but the AFC is loaded. So I don't know where they fit into this bubble here. Are you really going to waste going 3-4, 4-5 the first half of the year because you want to see what you got in Cam Newton, even though you saw what you had in him last year? I just don't get it. I really don't care if Cam Newton beats Kayvon Wallace, Elijah Riley, and those guys. Like, I just don't. Like, this whole willingness to want Cam Newton to be good by some of my colleagues in the national media it's mind-boggling to me. I mean, really, I thought Mac Jones played better than him last night. I don't even care if Mac Jones was playing. I just thought he looked better now.
Yeah, see, I'm conflicted because on one hand, I'm like, look, I can't judge these guys based on playing second, third team guys. Like, it's hard to evaluate because, you know, for example, are they making these throws because they don't have a blitz in front of them? Is it because they're making these throws because the coverage is off?
There's no pass rush last night, same thing.
Right, like, for example, you know, the best Eagles defenders last night were all linebackers. You know what I mean? It was Singleton, it was Bradley, it was Wilson, and it was Edwards just flying all over the place making tackles because Raekwon Williams can't stop a nosebleed on the defensive line. So it's like, you know, the linebackers are losing their minds last night. The 4 of them together had 17 solo tackles yesterday, Jeff. Think about that. 4 linebackers. Like, I don't think there were 4 linebackers who had 17 solo tackles through 4 weeks last year for the Eagles in the regular season last year. So
I've been saying to people too, you better get used to this because Eagles do have good linebackers. They do. Like, Wilson, Singleton are a fine starting core. It's a shame De'Veon Taylor got hurt because he would have been a nice piece to the puzzle. But Sean Bradley looks like he could play. We know TJ Edwards can play in spurts, but again, that's not a bad backup to have. And you're right, Josh. Like, the linebackers can play. Imagine what happens when you're going to have the first team defensive line with them, and you're going to have Darius Slay and Steven Nelson and, you know, Rodney McLeod and all these guys back. That's going to be the other thing too. I wanted to get your take on this too, John. What did you think of Zach McPherson last night?
I thought it was up and down. I thought some of the plays he had, I thought that he turned the wrong way twice. I thought that the one catch down the left sideline, I thought he turned the wrong way in coverage. But I thought there was a couple plays later where he played it perfectly, and it was obvious that the one play that Newton threw it down the middle, he could have thrown it left, but McPherson recovered. And then later in the game, Jones threw it right instead of left, and McPherson covered there. So from my eyes, I thought there were positives and negatives.
Yeah, and honestly, this is why I am wanting to be the cornerback number 2 in the first place, because this is perfect. Trial by fire. It's okay. Like, some guys learned a lot last night. I think Zach McPherson was one of them. And you're right. Like, I saw people were overreacting on Twitter. Oh, he's getting burned. He's getting burned. I'm like, he's not getting burned all the time. Like, they're just targeting him, which I think is a good thing. And I actually think Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels do teams a favor when they target their younger guys, because it kind of gets them that trial by fire, if you will. And I'm kind of glad it happened to him last night.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, joining us here on the Sports Bash as he does every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on 97.3 ESPN at Jeff Kerr CBS on Twitter. The other guy that, not to over harp on this, but I've been saying throughout the show, Jeff, how about Kenny Gainwell? I mean, the dude did everything. He ran the ball, he caught the ball, and then there was that one play he threw his body into the pass block. Like, that was way better than Elijah Holyfield did last night. At least Gainwell was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to throw my body into this guy, and it worked.
He's a football player, and he's a running back from Memphis. They seem to do well in the NFL. Just look at Antonio Gibson, Darrell Henderson, Tony Pollard, just guys left and right. And Kenny Gainwell looks like he's coming from that factory as well. And I got to give the guy credit. I just don't know where you're going to put him in this offense. Is he going to be the number 2? Is he going to be the 3? Is he going to take snaps from Miles Sanders? I don't think that'll happen, but him and Boston Scott, I think they're just a little battle there for playing time. And Gainwell showed me a lot last night in an anemic offense. I thought there were 2 guys that showed up, Devonta Smith and Kenny Gainwell.
Devonta Smith obviously was a big topic last night. And I think that Sirianni was right last night when he said that, these guys need to get up to game speed. And I think you saw with the one drop, it just was he just was out of rhythm. Like, his hands didn't come up at the right time. It was like his mind and body weren't in sync. But, when Shad Johnson's salivating over you on Twitter, acting like you're the greatest thing he's ever seen, and you're getting that kind of separation, I think it vindicates, maybe doesn't like validate, but vindicates at least the Eagles trading up to draft him.
There's a guy I really want to talk to about this, and I got to try to get him in the next couple of weeks, Isaac Bruce. I think Devonta Smith reminds me a lot of Isaac Bruce, and they kind of have like the same game, if you will. Like, they're both really good route runners. They both can beat you deep. I mean, if the Eagles have a deep ball going, I think Devonta Smith could do that. So I'd like to hear Isaac Bruce's, what he thinks of him. But, when I saw that Chad Johnson tweet, I was like, all right, this is one of the game's best receivers of, since 2000. This guy's legit, and he has a big social media presence. So I've been saying all along, I love the Devonta Smith pick, even when I first heard from the horse's mouth that you were going to trade up and get him. So, again, it's one of those things where I don't think the Eagles screwed up this pick at all. And, everybody's going to be like, well, the Eagles passed on Justin Fields. I'm like, well, here's the thing. We don't know that. We really don't. And I think they owe Jalen Hurts this year to find out if he's the starting quarterback or not. Next year, there's going to be plenty of quarterbacks in next year's draft anyway, even if they stink. So there's about 5 or 6 guys I really like in next year's draft. So, we can talk about that later. But overall, I really do think they got this pick right with Devonta Smith. And I think they got really lucky that Devonta Smith was not the first receiver taken. They got lucky that Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle went before him, which I still don't know how Waddle went before him. But
by the way, do you want to guess how much Isaac Bruce weighed in at the combine?
I want to say it was around 160.
173.
So I was close.
Well, listen, Devonta Smith claimed he was 170. Remember when he was drafted? Yeah. So, maybe your analogy there isn't too far off there, Jeff.
Yeah, I just watch a lot of Greatest Show on Turf games, and he just reminds me of Isaac Bruce, just by the way he runs his routes and the way he breaks. There's a lot to like. And again, like everybody said, well, Isaac Bruce was good about Kurt Warner. Isaac Bruce was good before Kurt Warner. So
and after.
Yeah, and after. Really, I didn't take Isaac Bruce this long to get into the Hall of Fame. I thought Isaac Bruce was just an absolute beast for a lot of years. And again, if Devonta Smith can come close to that, I know Jason Lockefour, my colleague at CBS, talked to Nick Sirianni. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. It might have been for the preseason game. But Sirianni said Devonta Smith is the best receiver he's seen since Keenan Allen. And so it goes, well, that's a great comparison because Keenan Allen always gets hurt. I'm like, Keenan Allen has the most NFL catches for a player in his first 100 career games. I think Eagles would gladly take that out of Devonta Smith.
Also, anyways, who ever played fantasy football loves having Keenan Allen on their PPR team because all he does is just rack up touches at that point.
That's all he does. And, it's funny. The year I thought my buddy was going to win fantasy football was the year Keenan Allen tore his ACL. So,
ooh.
He was
heartbreaking. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff, there was an injury I do want to touch on with you yesterday. The reports are that Jason Kroom is feared to have suffered a season-ending knee injury. and now so he's injured. We know that Tyree Jackson is injured. What's happening with this tight end situation? Are they going to trade Zach Ertz? Are they going to keep him just because they have to? What's going to happen? I mean, it's not like Jake Stoll is anything to write home about.
They got to keep Zach Ertz at this point. I mean, and they're still deep at tight end. They still have Richard Rodgers. They still have Dallas Goedert.
Oh, Richard Rodgers dropped the pass last night. What the heck's up with that?
Yeah, he never drops. He had a great year last year, too. He's and Richard Rodgers was like the Andrew Knapp of the 2020 Eagles. You don't expect anything from him, and then he shows up. And, remember Andrew Knapp hit 350 last year, whatever he ended up hitting? It's kind of like that with Richard Rodgers. So, again, if he's your third tight end, can't complain. By the way, the Eagles also worked out Downtown East grad Kerry Angeline today. He's an undrafted free agent tight. I covered him in high school, so I'm curious when he was in high school. I'm curious to see if they bring him in. He's a 6'9" kid. He's really tall body, developmental project again. So someone they can work out over these next 2 weeks if they want to do that. But overall, I think you got to keep Zach Ertz at this point. I really do. I don't think they have an option.
Jeff, a couple other things around the NFL. We talked about the quarterback situation with Cam Newton and Mac Jones last night, but this weekend we're going to see some more of these quarterback competitions. Which one are you zeroing in on right now?
Well, this whole Justin Fields, Andy Dalton thing needs to stop. I think Justin Fields should be starting week 1, so I'll be watching that. And I'm curious to see how Urban Meyer can royally screw up the number 1 overall pick and actually play Gardner Minshew over him. Why is this a thing? Gardner Minshew should be on his first he should be anywhere but Jacksonville right now. I don't understand this. I get you want to preach competition. Are you really going to start Gardner Minshew over Trevor Lawrence? Are you really going to do that to your fan base? Again, that's an interesting one. Garoppolo, Trey Lance. I'm pretty sure Garoppolo is going to be the starter there.
It's not a competition. Shanahan already said that. So
I honestly, Shanahan's handling it the best way he can. It's hey, Jimmy G's the starter. People can talk up Trey Lance all they want. Trey Lance is in the best situation of any of these rookie quarterbacks, honestly, because 49ers are talented, and he's got a QB whisperer in Kyle Shanahan. So that's all going to work out there for them. The Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill one, that's the one I'm curious. I still think Peyton's going to start Taysom Hill, but I don't know. I think the whole reviving Jameis Winston's career is very intriguing for him, too. And they're going to need a quarterback and throw down the field. I don't know if Taysom Hill can do that.
I think Taysom Hill can do it, but I don't think he can do it accurately.
Yeah, you're right. We know Jameis Winston can do it. Honestly, the only thing stopping Jameis Winston is Jameis Winston. Just don't turn the football over, and you're going to be the Saints quarterback for the next 10 years.
Oh, my God. I'm trying to remember the Saints receiver who's been working out with Winston in the offseason. Traquan Smith, is it?
It is Traquan Smith, yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. It was either Traquan or it was Austin Carr, but I don't think he's there anymore. So
I think Austin Carr was cut or something, or he was injured waived or something. I forget. But
by the way, I was actually quizzed by CBS Sports Radio to name the Saints receivers, and I watch a lot of Saints games. I can only name 2. It was bad. It's bad for me. I usually can name about 5 or 6 down the chart. I'm like, boy, I got to start watching some more Saints preseason games.
Well, I mean, that's the other problem with the Saints, and that is everyone's trying to evaluate the quarterbacks. There's no Michael Thomas, and we know Sean Payton is ticked off at him because he waited till last minute to get this surgery done. So, who knows what's going on in New Orleans?
By the way, Michael Thomas got paid a lot of money to wait that long for surgery. I'd be upset too. I like Michael Thomas. I don't think he's overrated like a lot of people do, but it's just a bad look for him. Now it's I don't want to be there anymore. Well, if you don't want to be there, why'd you sign the contract?
Yeah, I don't think he's a bad player, overrated. I just think that he's a guy who has a history of having weird relationships. You go back to him at Ohio State, apparently at Ohio State, he got along with the defensive players more than the offensive players. He would go out and hang out with the defensive players and the cornerbacks and the linebackers, and dudes were like, dude, hang out with your quarterback and your running backs. What are you doing? Apparently he's an odd dude in general. And then he pulls this Scottie Pippen 98 Bulls thing where he's like, I'll wait till last minute to get surgery done.
That's a perfect analogy, but I got to go back to Urban Meyer for a second. I shouldn't be surprised Urban Meyer's doing this with Gardner Minshew. This is the same guy who started J.T. Barrett over Tate Martell, Joe Burrow, Dwayne Haskins, who were all better than JT Barrett, by the way. But yeah, we had to prove JT Barrett can throw the ball because he's Braxton Miller 2.0 or whatever. Whenever Urban was trying to do that, I get this is why, like, I'm a Penn State grad. This is why I can't stand Ohio State. They try to force feed JT Barrett down your throats when you know that they have better players. I'm sorry. I will never get over JT Barrett beating Penn State in 2017. I will
really quick, before I let you go, can I ask you about your former Penn State quarterback, Will Levis? Did you see the video of him eating the banana with the peel on?
Oh, my God. He was on the Today Show for that. No, I got a funny story for it. So my mom texted me. She goes, you got to turn on the Today Show with Hoden. I'm like, why do I got to turn on the Today Show? She's like, just turn it on. It's a familiar person. I'm like, all right. I'm like, what is Will Levis doing on the Today Show? And I'm just like, unbelievable. I'm surprised my mom knew who it was, honestly. Like, she follows Penn State, but not, like, religiously. But I guess she knew that was him. And she's like, why is he on Kentucky now? And, like, she didn't know he transferred. So I was just like, whatever. He still can't throw a football, by the way.
It's funny you say that because I was listening to Andy Staples' podcast this week, and he had a guy on there who covers the Big Ten, and I forget the guy's name on top of my head, but he was telling me, he's like, do you know that they did not want Will Levis to throw the ball at Penn State because they were afraid he would steal the starting quarterback's job? Like, apparently Franklin was afraid that Levis was too good of an arm, so they turned him into a running quarterback at Penn State.
Heaven forbid, you bench Sean Clifford. Yeah, come on. Again, this is what frustrates me. Every time I watch Justin Fields play football, Penn State could have had him, and they had Sean Clifford. Every time Justin Fields beat them, I'm like, this was the guy. This was the guy. And thank God he can recruit. Thank God James Franklin can recruit because he gets everybody and their mom pretty much now. But I still don't know who the quarterback's going to be in the future. He's got a couple nice guys coming up, but Penn State just turns out running back after running back after running back right now. They have like 6 running backs who could start in the Big Ten, and they're all on their roster. I don't know how he's going to do that this year.
Jeff Kerr, Penn State alum, CBS Sports, at Jeff Kerr CBS on Twitter. Jeff, always appreciate chatting with you. Mike Gill, we expect him to be back on Monday. His team, their second game is tonight. They won the afternoon game of the knockout round. They play at 7 tonight. So we'll find out this weekend how far they get. So we assume you'll see Gill on Monday, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, I was wondering like how Gill's team was doing. I'm like, when is he ever going to come back? Because if they keep winning, he won't be.
Well, they got to stop winning eventually. I mean, they're in literally the World Series. So
yeah, they are. So, by the way, the team by me, Oaks, they lost today. So
there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. Wait, they do play tonight.
They're playing tonight at 7. They had to play a doubleheader today because of the rain up there.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so the ESPN, so they're on the ESPN game then.
No, so what's on ESPN is the Little League World Series.
Okay.
That's your, I think it's like 10 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
This is 13-year-olds.
Okay, that's right. He does 13. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there's another group, I think it's 14 to 15. I think that's the Babe Ruth World Series. It's a little weird.
It's on ESPN Plus though, isn't it? Isn't all this on ESPN Plus?
I have no idea. I'm not the person to ask. Listen, I'm the person who gets made fun of because when Gil wants to put the Little League World Series on the TV, I tell him, I'm like, I don't care, Mike. I just don't care. Listen, it's a cute highlight thing if you're into that kind of thing. You know what I have on the TV right now? I have the Northern Trust Open on the Golf Channel. That's what I have.
You know what I was watching after the Eagles game last night because I needed to watch some actual competitive football? The CFL. I'm a CFL junkie.
Jeff, I don't know if you saw my tweet. I was at an establishment in Sea Isle over the weekend. They had the CFL and the NBA Summer League on the TVs.
Isn't that beautiful?
I was like, what reality did I just enter?
That's a real sports bar because they literally play every sport.
I don't even know if it really counts as a sports bar. I mean, it had people in there weren't even watching the TV. So,
yeah, well, the Sixers, at least their schedule came out today. So now I got to send everything to everybody's season ticket or be like, pick your games, so I can rip you off and sell them. And, but I at the end of the day, I'm always like, nah, you know what? I'm going to go see LeBron. I'm going to go see Giannis. I'm gonna go see this team. You guys can have. But it used to be the Hawks. Used to be the gimme game. Now it's like, okay, yeah, you can go see the Hornets.
Well, the Pelicans are the first game. Do you really want to see Zion?
I think that's in New Orleans, though, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I thought that was in Philly. What's the first game in Philly? I got to double check that.
I think it's the Nets, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, well, you're definitely not getting rid of those tickets.
Oh no, I gotta go see KD, and it's funny because I will rip KD. Like I love KD, but I will rip him to shreds while they play the Sixers while I'm wearing KD shoes. Everybody goes, dude, it's so hypocritical. I'm like, I like the guy, I just don't like the team he's on. There's a difference.
All right, Jeff, we ran out of real estate. Appreciate you jumping on, man. Good conversation as always.
Thanks, Josh.
I mean, Jeff and I just kept going and going and going, just like, we'll just keep chatting, hang out. Happy Hour Friday being brought to you today by Clark's Moving and Storage in South Jersey. For your next local or long-distance move, Clark's Moving and Storage is your first call. They're dependable and always show up. Visit them online at clarksmoving.net. Thanks to Jeff Kerr. Thanks to Pete Thompson. Thanks to Bob Wankel. Thanks to Andrew DiCecco. Thanks to Reid Fowler from DraftKings. Thanks to Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City. Sports Bash Best Of is coming up next. Tomorrow, 8 a.m., Faith on the Field with Rob Monty. Billy Schwein in the locker room at 10 a.m. I'll be on for a half hour for Sports Bash Saturday tomorrow before Major League Baseball coverage right here on ESPN Radio on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night, everybody.
Tomorrow on Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. It's a Lone Star State battle, and bragging rights are on the line as the Dallas Cowboys host the Houston Texans. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action as the preseason continues on. Will the Cowboys find the win column, or can the Texans make it 2 wins in a row? It's the Dallas Cowboys and the Houston Texans. If it's the NFL, it's right here.
Coverage begins at 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN.
Are you looking for a rewarding new career